and South Australia will become the legitimate champion of Australia after beating Victoria here a few weeks ago. The huge area of the WACA ground could be a test for South Australia though, but Western Australia has had to field a relatively inexperienced side. But now it's time to go to Perth and Seven's coverage of the game between South Australia and Western Australia.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the WACA ground in Perth. Under lights for the big interstate clash tonight between Western Australia and South Australia. What a vital game it is. WA, of course, will decide in the expanded VFL competition, the West Coast Eagles. But it's interesting to note, no Eagles in this side tonight. None of the Eagles squad have been included by John Todd and his fellow selectors. Perhaps they're trying to make a point. By contrast, South Australia don't have a side in the expanded VFL competition, but tonight they have a chance to win the Australian Championships. And with me is Peter Marker. And Peter, what about this South Australian side?
It's a good side. Naturally, you pick your best side to win these games or to win any game. And we beat Victoria and Adelaide at Footy Park in a good game about 3 weeks ago. And a win here tonight will make us Australian champions, so it's vital. And similarly for you guys, I mean, to be the Australian champion again, I suppose you've got to win tonight. You don't have to, but it certainly would help.
Certainly. Well, let's take a look at the record book then. What does it tell us? Western Australia successful in Perth. You're absolutely right. The more I think about that, that's very profound, Pete. 83 WA in Perth, victorious. 84 WA in Adelaide. That was a big win. And then we roll on to 85. That had to be one of the all-time great South Australian sides. And last year, of course, I think a lot of people surprised by WA's performance in Adelaide. What about the weather tonight? Well, I think it sent quite a few people away from the ground. Winds northeasterly, 18 knots, showers increasing tonight, and there could be the chance of a thunderstorm. Currently it's 15 degrees. A very disappointing crowd. I think we've got to say that at the outset. Probably about 10,000 people at best here at the WACA ground at the present time, so quite a few people have decided not to come down here to the WACA and watch this big interstate game. We talked about that 85 side, the South Australian strength that came here that year. How would you compare this side to that one?
I don't think this side's as good as that. A lot of the players that played in that side are now in Melbourne. I think Malcolm Blight was the captain of that side, and that was his last interstate game. But this side tonight, I better reserve judgment. Let's wait till after the match.
Okay, Pete, let's go down to Ken McCauley now.
Thanks very much, Dennis. Well, with me, I've got Eric Sarich, and Eric will be making very constructive comments during this match. Eric, history in the making, the first interstate match under lights in WA. Where's the crowd?
Well, I'm sure that the WAFL would like to know as well. I'm amazed. I suppose the forecast of rain kept a few away. The fact that both sides are down on playing strength kept a few more away. But why there's not at least 15,000 here, Ken, I really don't know.
It'd have to be with all the newcomers in both sides. You know, the South Australians have brought 11 in, and our side is, you know, is virtually a newcomers to state football. It's got to be a caller's nightmare.
Well, fortunately, we've got a couple of good ones in Dennis Committee and Peter Marker up there, so I'm sure they'll handle that okay. But yes, there's a lot of new faces. I guess the people like the names and the reputations, and there aren't a lot of them out here tonight. But one thing there is out here tonight is a fantastic playing surface, Ken. I mean, normally even if it's a dry day, we tend to think of a bit of dew on the ground and slippery surface, but looking out on the WACA surface, it really is absolutely fantastic, and the quality of football should be there, even if the crowd isn't.
Well, we must stand to attention just before we do so. Who's your tip?
I'll go for South Australia. I think West Australia's just far too low on experienced players, but the spirit will be there, and I don't think it'll be all that much in at the finish.
We'll see what a good judge you are.
Okay.
Eric and Ken just pause for the national anthem. An imposing sight, as you can see from the air. It would be nice to say a big roar goes up from the crowd, but, well, the crowd simply isn't here tonight. Peter Marker, it must be something of an education for the South Australians, and perhaps a handicap for your side to come across and run out before so few people.
Yeah, you might be right, Dennis, although I suppose that a small crowd shouldn't really affect your performance, but I get your point. In interstate clashes recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, and similarly with your own players, they've been used to very big crowds and very good games. You were in Adelaide last year. I think there were 35,000 people there. But I think it's just going to be a very interesting game, particularly because of the unknowns in it.
Sure.
I mean, we haven't played at this ground before, for starters. And I think there'd be 15 of you guys we just don't know anything about.
Yep. There's the WA huddle then. You saw Bruce Lindsay, the South Australian captain, win the toss, and South Australia were kicking towards the western end of the ground, aided by a slight breeze. It's probably worth a couple of goals. The South Australians quickly to their positions. The West Australians with that last-minute huddle, and it's taking some time to disperse. Well, the weather is good at the moment. Some rain last night, again this morning, but nothing too heavy. And this ground certainly has shown wonderful drainage capacities in recent times. That game against the Bears, torrential downpour throughout the game. It started as early as about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It did not stop, and yet we didn't see any puddles on this ground. So no problems as far as the playing surface is concerned. It's a question now of the competition. A new-look West Australian side. Of course, South Australia have lost a lot of big names playing in the VFL this season. We touched on their 85 side. That was an outstanding combination that came to Perth and thrashed WA at Subiaco Oval. One of the stalwarts, 35 years of age, leading in most of the media awards this season, Brian Peake, the furthest from the camera there. And there's another veteran, Peter Carey, for the first centre bounce of the interstate game then here at the WACA ground. Under lights, a piece of history. Shane Cocker will go against Carey, who's favoured by the bounce. Carey thumps it towards half forward. It's taken by Taylor. He gets the hand pass over the top. McDermott goes long down towards full forward for South Australia. Mandamaker's under the ball. It comes off hands. Chance behind for McKenna for Western Australia. Swings it around the outer side. Leading in the race out there is Anderson. Coming down to meet the ball is Golding. Gets it over to Morton. Clever football. Morton deflected the ball across to support. Hetherington's hurried kick goes towards centre wing. McDermott's in there. Lindsay comes up. Going in is Jarman. It comes to McDermott. Back to Jarman. Jarman drives it around the outer side towards half forward. McKenna's in there with a fist. It comes to Anderson. Anderson over the top to Aish. Aish on the boundary line. Pulls it back towards full forward. Mandamaker couldn't hang on. Diving in desperation. Wilkinson thought he was pushed in the back by Lamb. And the umpire decides he'll move it and ball it up. Temper's becoming frayed. A couple of the long hairs having a go at each other down there.
Yeah, Andrew Taylor there is the South Australian player, centre half forward. And he's a very good player. I thought Mandamaker might have taken that mark a little while ago. Another pack of players there. Taylor gets in front. Can't pick the ball up at all. It's kicked off the ground. Here's a chance for South Australia as Anderson comes through. Couldn't pick the ball up. Umpire calls play on. In fact, he's paid a free kick there to South Australia. It was just behind the pole there. It's Anderson. So Anderson has the first chance to put a score on the board. Last year's Magarey medalist. Didn't play last week. He suffered, I think, an ankle injury in training the week before, but he appears to have made no mistake. He's booted a goal. First goal tonight for South Australia.
Well, Eric Sarich, that's certainly the start they wanted.
Yes, I think they'll find the conditions very much to their liking, Dennis. It really is terrific out there. The surface of the ground has never been better. I do feel that South Australia has the edge in class and probably experience as well. So Western Australia certainly in the opening 15 to 20 minutes will be under extreme pressure to keep the game going.
Back to the centre bounce again. Peter Carey, he's a legend in South Australia. Played in excess of 400 games for his club, Glenelg. Ocker was his opponent. It's Peake who got the quick kick away. First chance for Western Australia now as Bremen came out to meet the ball, but it's cleared by Phillips to the outer side of the ground. Greg Anderson gets there. He just kicked a goal for South Australia. Here's another chance out there for Tony Burgess. Quick kick forward, and it's kick it under the ball, and he takes a good mark just the defence side of centre wing.
An exciting player is Derek Kickett. He goes in short and finds Mark Watson. Still the defensive side at centre. The hand pass comes across to Morton. A chip pass towards centre field finds Peake, and he's away, driving along into the forward line. Bremen in best position. Up he goes. Couldn't take the mark. It was knocked away down there by Rogers. Picked up by Phillips. It came out to Salisbury. Salisbury gets the hand pass to Burgess, and Burgess brings it across the face of the WACA. And Michael Aish trips up to take the mark on his chest. Aish, the defensive side of half-back, kicking towards centre wing. Intelligent kick. Lindsay takes the mark. Feeds the ball onto Abernathy. Abernathy goes down towards half forward. In front is Taylor. Knocked away by Campbell. A chance now for Watson to knock on towards Kickett. Oh, brilliantly done. Derek Kickett comes away from half back and spears a pass to half forward. And the mark is taken by Waterson. Waterson forward of centre wing. Goes long inside the 50-metre line. Bremen is a spectacular mark, Todd Bremen.
Well, Dennis, he's been in outstanding form in club football, Todd Bremen, for WA. Currently under report. That was very cleverly deferred until tomorrow night, and I'm sure the WA supporters will be very, very pleased to see him at full forward tonight.
We're not.
We're not.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Here goes Bremen then from about 40 metres out. That's a shocking kick. He puts it through for a behind. And perhaps it's worth talking about that because I remember last season Tony Antrobus got 5 weeks the night of the interstate game, and the West Australians have deferred a tribunal that was set for last night on Bremen to tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we didn't defer Antrobus, and I think we tend to play by the rules. Sometimes it's hurt us a bit, though. Carey got it over to Burgess. A daisy cutter there to Taylor. He didn't take the mark. He half-volleyed it, and it's holding the ball against Taylor, and the free kick there to go to Grant Campbell. Got the handball over there to McKenna. Not McKenna, that was Watson. He went long to half forward, but it's Peter Carey cutting them off. Puts it back to Bruce Lindsay, who's running on the ball tonight for South Australia. Penetrating kick up there to half forward, but a good effort there by Guy McKenna, who came across to take the mark. Kick is everywhere for Western Australia. So is Peake. Couldn't take the mark then. Got a long handball out there. It may come unstuck for him. There's Anderson. It was McDermott who tapped it on. Anderson will kick long around his body, right up into the goal square, and a thump away there by Greg Wilkinson. We'll see a point to South Australia. The score now 1-1. South Australia, 1 point Western Australia.
Turley kicks in, grandstand side. Carey was up, couldn't take the mark. It comes forward to the pack. Carey overruns the ball. Kickett is in there. Now a chance for Lamb. Clever hand pass across to Jarman. And Darren Jarman pops through another one for South.
Like that blindly, really, I thought, up to a point across the face of goals, and probably a little bit lucky to get out of that.
Mark taken there by Buick. Umpires Ball and Hilton. Well, Taylor was interfered with, and he'll get the free kick. He's not only just a marking player, he's a very competitive player on the ground. Chance man to maker in front, didn't take the mark. Comes out the back door. Chance for South Australia there with Darryl Hart, but pretty untidy patch of play there, and umpire Ball is going to bounce it about 40 metres from the WA goal, from the South Australian goal.
South Australian bench. I would imagine Corns in an elevated position. Very silent around the ground. Buick, a hand pass out wide. It's taken away by Wilkinson. He runs into a dead end, but not before he gets the hand pass to Peake. He knocks it back over his head. Going without the ball was Brown. Now a chance for South Australia to quickly rebound. Abernathy gets the hand pass across towards support coming up from the half-back line in Whittlesea, but in the meantime, saw a whistle on play, and Abernathy's got the free. Goes down towards the pocket. Not a well-directed kick, and McKenna gets in the road. In brilliant form last Saturday for Claremont in club competition. Goes across the face of goal. Goes out wide. The mark is taken by Watson. Watson runs up through the middle. Kicks towards centre half forward. Phillips fisting away. But a lot of distance on that. It's taken by Jarman. On the overlap is Aish. Aish goes in towards half forward. Well-weighted kick, and Burgess takes the mark. Ominous signs now for WA. South Australia really dictating the terms and the pace of this game. Here's Burgess on the line of the square. The attacking side of centre goes long down towards full forward, and the mark is taken by Taylor. Good strong mark by Taylor in front. He should score from here. He's only about 10 metres out on a 45-degree angle.
Yes, eyes only for the football, Dennis, wasn't it?
Yep.
And he should convert quite easily here, and very, very obvious signs, of course, that West Australia is undermanned already, certainly in the aerial department.
He steers it through. The third goal on the board then for South Australia. They're 3-2, and Western Australia 1 point.
Well, the odd sortie that West Australia has made forward, I can only recall one positive mark being taken up the forward line. That was by Breman, and he missed badly. But apart from that, there's been no real method. In fact, West Australia breaking down rather badly across half forward. And Dennis, with a player like Derek Kickett, he's playing brilliantly, no doubt about that at the moment, but how sorely he's needed across the half forward line, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, Kickett seems to be playing a loose man in defence. I don't know if we've misread the breeze down there where the South Australia...
Well, there isn't any, Peter, quite frankly. I was down there and there's nothing at all. So the ends are not favoured at all.
Well, Western Australian coach John Todd has got Kickett playing loose in defence as Anderson for South Australia spears it straight to that player, Kickett. Off he goes. He certainly is an outstanding player. He is certainly in everything. Scott Rowland takes the mark and plays on. Here's a chance for Western Australia as Bremen is under the ball. Out to Thorne. Kicks high over the shoulder. That comes back now to, I'll say Browning initially, but it wasn't. I think that's Todd Bremen now. Kick out of defence from South Australia. Whittlesea can't mark it. Another chance for Western Australia, but beaten by a bad bounce. Centre half back, or centre half forward for Western Australia. Tapped out very well by Watson. Another chance for the Sandgropers as they put it wide into the pocket. I don't know that that's too clever as Thorne has the ball. Tackled well, has to handball clear. It's gone out of the left forward pocket for Western Australia, and we'll see a throw in that position. South Australia leading 3-2 for the Westerners 1 point.
Pretty indirect stuff there by Western Australia. There's the boundary throw in. Rucks go to it. It's one out by Waterson. A chance for Hart of South Australia. Gets the hand passes to Phillips, who in turn gives it to Jarman. Jarman runs up through the middle and sends play out towards centre wing. Turley is up, knocked on intelligently by Aish. Now he's penalised.
Maybe a little bit unlucky. I'm trying to go along your thinking, Dennis. Fairly intelligent tap away. Didn't appear to be an infringement.
Turley gives it to Golding, who runs from wing, long into the forward line. Intended for Bremen. Over the top, Rogers fists away. Now a chance for Thorne on the ground. Thorne deep in the pocket. That's a marvellous attempt as he pulls it back towards the kick-off line. Off hands, close to the boundary. Rowland has it in the right full forward pocket. He centres the ball. Well done. Waterson takes the mark. So the East Fremantle teammates combining there. Scott Rowland deep in the pocket, making something out of nothing. And certainly it was a good centering kick by Peter Thorne under pressure on the boundary line. He pulled it back. So now Waterson from point-blank range, a chance to score the first goal for Western Australia, who trail by 19 points. He steers it through.
Yes, I guess to say that's badly needed is something of an understatement. There he is, the man who kicked the goal, the only goal so far for WA, and gets a pat on the backside from his teammate. That's the original kick by Peter Thorne, which wasn't a bad effort from deep in the forward pocket, being a left footer. And Rowland waited cleverly at the back of the pack, and that was a really clever piece of football. He chipped it back rather than blaze away and gave Waterson the chance, and his anticipation of being in the right spot wasn't bad either. And there's the final conversion. So Western Australia have got a goal on the board, but I think changes are going to have to be made in their playing.
Looking very indirect, aren't they?
Yes, they had to work for that. For instance, I think the ball was deep in the forward pocket. I think Peter mentioned that. The ball being too indirect, going deep in the pockets is not going to work.
Back to the centre now. Peter Carey for South Australia. Cocker for the West. Carey put his hand on it. Andrew Taylor from centre half forward ran down, got a handball clear. Greg Anderson has opened up pretty well for South Australia. Got a long handball out. Here's another go now through Darryl Hart. In a bit of trouble as he got the handball back from a colleague, but he appeared to be pushed. Pushing the back, umpire ball has played the free kick to Darryl Hart in the forward pocket. Reports were that he got off the plane today, a little bit sick, Darryl Hart, but it's good to see him in the side. He's been a great little rover for North Adelaide this year, the Rooster captain. Be about 40 metres from goal. Lines it up, and he has put it through for his first goal. South Australia now advanced to 4-2, Western Australia 1-1.
Well, no trouble with the goal kicking so far, Peter. The accuracy is there. And I guess I'd like your comments, actually, is as to regard the ground in comparison with Football Park shape-wise. Of course, this is better known as the WACA ground in cricket, of course, but not a bad football ground these days. And how does it compare with Football Park as far as the surface and shape of the ground?
Well, it's fantastic. It really is. I would think, Dennis, just a little bit narrow, a little bit wider, but about the same length.
Yes. Hasn't got the crowd, of course, that we associate with Football Park for interstate games. Kickett gets in the road again. He's been playing in this capacity for Claremont in recent weeks, used across half-back, so his usage tonight in keeping with the way he's been used in club football by Gerard Neesham. This is Golding on the outer side. There's the kick down towards half-forward. Bremen on a lead, but the courageous mark is taken there by McDermott.
Well, I would have given that as a push in the back to Bremen, quite frankly.
McDermott goes towards the outer side, back into the air, off hands, a chance for Golding. Anderson, who's been a live wire, leads back in the race. Hetherington knocks the ball away. It's out of bounds. We'll have a throw in. Now, that area, as Managlio is warming up to come on, that area on the outer side is due to be demolished. We should see a southern stand in its stead this time next year. Carey is up. Cocker over the top, thumps away. A chance for Salisbury or Aish. All the time in the world, if you don't mind, as Aish goes around the outer side. Some of the South Australians can't believe the time they've got at the moment as he kicks down towards half forward. Hart was up, couldn't mark. Kickett easily WA's best player, gives it across to support, and the short pass comes in. It came from Turley. It was marked by Peake. Back it comes to Kickett. Good shepherd from Turley. Kickett goes towards half forward. In front, the mark is taken by Browning. Quinton Browning on the 50-metre line.
He looked under that one, didn't he? Stood his ground very, very well, and he's kicked his share of goals too for East Fremantle this year since coming back from Hawthorn. And this will test him, Dennis.
Hetherington is off, so he's lost the battle, at least for the time being, against Anderson. And Managlio probably will take up station on that wing. There goes the high kick in. They'll contest on the kickoff line. Big pack. It falls behind, taken by Whittlesey. He goes across the face of goal, drives towards the outer side. A foot race out there. Rowland and Anderson, so perhaps that's the switch. Rowland's come up from a forward pocket or half-forward flank. He's taken Anderson, and Managlio may go on the ball as a ruck rover off a half-forward flank.
Just the way that ball stood up into the air there, I've got a feeling that South Australia is going with the breeze. I know you were down there a little while ago, Eric, but the coach has placed Kickett in defence, and I think he's done that for a reason. As Jarman gets it to Aish onto Carey, South Australia are going to run it out again, up past centre wing. Oh, good mark, backing back into the pack there. That was the lad that... Did he just come on? No, it was Morton. No. Morton took the mark and got it clear. Watson couldn't take the mark. Got plenty of backup support, though, there with Peake. He puts the high ball to centre half forward. Trying to take the mark in there for Western Australia was Waterson. Couldn't do that. Pushes the ball out, though, intelligently. Another chance for Western Australia as Abernethy traps the ball brilliantly. Handballs it clear. Here's Aish again for South Australia, who kicks it clear to centre wing. Kick it. Oh, great mark. I think he's run the Simpson medal already, that lad. Away he goes to Peake. Peake goes very short. I don't think that's going to help his forward, but you never know. It went through the back door. Vaughan has got it now. Swings around. He won't get a goal with that one. Pushes it way across the front of goal, and it's run through for a point.
Interesting, Peter, the way they're playing Kickett now. They've brought Burgess out of defence, and he's standing Kickett, who was a spare man in defence, so that's a compliment to him.
Sure is. He deserves it, every bit of it.
Thorne's biggest problem there, Peter, was that he's a left footer and he's trapped on his right foot, which is not his great strength, I don't believe.
Rogers driving down the centre of the ground. Such is the confidence of the South Australians. Jarman got a hand on that one. Rowland behind it. Comes back to Peake. Spills wide. Taken by Golding. Gets it to Managlio. On the 50-metre line, he goes down towards full forward. The ball hangs in the breeze. Oh, great mark by Bremen. A one-hander.
Well, that's why they preferred the tribunal. I think take marks like that. You deserve to be out there, don't you? That's a brilliant mark, isn't it? Should kick this, and West Australia certainly do need it. Must say that again.
Bremen puts it through. Goal to Western Australia, their second. 2-2 to 4-2 here at the WACA ground then. We've played about 18 minutes in this opening term.
Really wouldn't bank on it helping too much in the second quarter. There are some flags for you fellas over on the scoreboard, which are fairly limp, by the way.
Yeah, they're not doing much as Cocker put his hand on that one. Chance for Western Australia to run it out, but it didn't work for them. Andrew Jarman picked it up, pirouetted well and put it to Aish at right half forward flank. Aish is a player that's really got to stand shoulder to shoulder if you want to beat him. Todd's had a bit of experience with him, but Peake got a brilliant kick out of defence to Golding. He's way up there on his own. Might give it to Roland. No, he bounces through half forward. Western Australia build again. Here's a big chance for a score. Cleverly tapped over the top. Hitting back was Andrew Jarman. Also Butner. It comes out to Phillips. Phillips pushes the ball back into the centre of the ground. Peake got a horrible bounce. And Taylor passes off to McDermott. He runs through half forward. Kicks long. Here's a big chance for South Australia. Getting under the ball right down there is Ross Gibbs. And I would say he'd no difficulty at all. So Ross Gibbs has got a chance. He's going to be put onto an angle. Plus kicking goals, this former Western Australian. Puts it through with no difficulty. So that's Gibbs' first goal. South Australia 5-2. Western Australia 2-2.
All too easy, really, wasn't it? It's the speed of the game of football, because it was only seconds before that a clever tap on almost got into the path of Thorne at the other end of the ground, and another half a metre would have placed it perfectly and he would have run into an open goal. But a very, very good transference of play by South Australia to the other end, and then Gibbs found himself with a tremendous amount of space at the back of the pack in the goal square, which is really poor defensive football, and South Australia have got the break. And we are informed that none less than Ken McCauley, Dennis, suggests there is some breeze failing South Australia, so can we leave it at that?
Back to the centre. And young Michael Lee just replaced Thorne for Western Australia. He's gone straight to the forward pocket. McDermott did well to get it to Andrew Jarman. Andrew Jarman's having a ball in the middle, and he gave that to Michael Aish. Penetrating kicking by the South Australians with this breeze. It's going over the top, and it's catching the Western Australian defenders out. It's done that on 2 occasions now, and we've gone past 20 minutes in the first quarter. Michael Aish, a former South Australian captain, pushes that one off to the left, but I think he's got it. Just snuck it through. The goal to Ace, 6-2 South Australia, Western Australia 2-2.
Eric, I've got to make a point. I don't think I've seen a state game, at least in the first quarter, with so much time for players to get rid of the ball. I mean, the South Australian players are, I think, a little bemused by it all, because Jarman had time to amble around in the centre there and pick about one of, well, 3 options.
Yes, there's not a lot of pressure. There was a period of about 5 minutes a moment ago, or a few minutes ago, where Western Australia looked as though they were getting back into it.
There's the goal, and there's the bounce. Carey was up. In goes Peake, who's trying hard for Western Australia. Wilkinson over the ball now. Is claimed by Taylor. That was a good sliding tackle. Took him just right, low down, and another bounce coming up. So 38 plays 14. WA in big trouble. Cocker using his body. Monaglio taken high. No free kick. Taylor gets the hand pass out. McDermott goes into the forward line yet again. Kick it. Up he goes. Couldn't take the mark that time. Showing great desperation is McKenna. He's over the ball. Gibbs has got him by the strides. Then goes Roland and pushes him out. And the umpire's decided he's going to ball it up down there.
Just well for McKenna. He was making some effort to get that out, because he could have been penalised, I think.
There's the bounce. One down by Campbell. Knocked out by Watson. Turley's got the run of it to Wilkinson. Over the top comes the hand pass. Pocket too slow. Now a chance for South Australia. This is Hart. Dragged off the hand pass. It goes towards Lindsay. Coming down is Campbell. Lindsay does it well. Bruce Lindsay at half forward. Feeds the ball off nicely. Abernathy's got it. Can go to the middle. And does. Carey's got the ball. Man peels off to Carey, so he's got a loose man. Over it comes to McDermott. Inside him was Hart, but he goes for distance. Down towards full forward. Pack into the air down there. Well, the pack was descending, in fact, but the man in front, Brown, stood his ground and took the mark.
Yeah, Rudy Manamaker fell over on the run-in, but it was a good mark by Brown, and well cut off there by McDermott. Hart got the handball out to Lindsay. Back it goes towards McDermott. Also Ross Gibbs down there, but it's run over the line by Guy McKenna.
Well, that was rather sluggish football by the West Australians there. That just goes back to what Dennis was saying, Peter, about the tempo. Two players there left it for each other, and South Australia almost got in for another goal.
Yes, and Mike Ball is wearing, or he's wired up, so we can hear him tonight. So
He'd better be careful, hadn't he?
yeah, watch out for that. There could be a bit of colour coming from the umpire.
Could be reportable if he says something out of order.
Be delightful, wouldn't it, for an umpire to get reported? Anderson's at left half forward, pulls it back towards full forward. Mandamaker there, but he couldn't get a leap away. Handballed away by Guy McKenna, who's playing pretty well. Player down behind play there. I didn't pick it up, but Kickett has marked just the defence side of centre wing.
Kickett drives it along that outer side, jostling down there. Phillips and Waterson. It bounced for Waterson. Waterson, the long hand pass out wide. It's a foot waste. Golding leads. He's inside 50. He's a beautiful kick at the football, Golding. What's he done with this one? Goes down towards the goal line, but Bubner's up in front of Browning, and he's taken the mark. 38-14. Still no rain. It's not a pleasant night for footy, really. There's Gavin Waite coming onto the ground now for Western Australia, as Bubner drives around the outer side with a high kick, and Watson takes the mark uncontested out there. Mark Watson too far out to score. Bremen comes on a lead. It's put in his direction. Too much carry on the kick. Drifting in the mark, almost taken by Carey. Waiting behind, a chance for Western Australia. It comes out towards this player, Managlio. Managlio, the hand pass to Kickett on the forward line now. Kickett goes Goldwood and has missed. So Browning it was who gave the lead. Bremen dropped in behind actually on the forward line that time. So they're varying the pattern just a little bit. Western Australia edge a little closer, 2-2 to 6-2 as Rogers puts the ball into play.
Outer side of the ground, it's Cocker there. Anderson got his hands to it, couldn't mark it. Carey rove the ball to Phillips. Phillips showing pace through the centre of the ground. There's a bit of water in there. The lead from Mandamaker. Put his hand up, couldn't mark the ball. Oops. Because McKenna, who got the handball out.
Lucky, Peter.
Yeah, it was.
Nice slick-looking hand pass. The trouble is Campbell had nowhere to go, and perhaps just a try for lucky to get a free kick rather than being penalised.
Yeah, it was set up for South Australian goal there. Campbell got the kick away. Cocker's marked it on the outer side of the ground. An ungainly kicking action. Rowland's taken the mark. Scott Rowland in the centre of the ground. Here's a bit of movement from Western Australia now as they run it through half forward. Kick, not a good one. Lee couldn't mark the ball. Kickett's roving it pretty well. Appeared to be manhandled in the pack there. Lee's got another chance. Gets it out to Bremen. Bremen lines it up from 45 metres out, and he misses. So a point to Western Australia. 2-4 now to South Australia 6-2.
No doubt that the arrival of Kickett across the half-forward line gives West Australia a bit of zip and a bit of excitement. It was certainly lacking early in the piece.
Rogers easily to Jarman on that occasion, and it was just a bit too easy. Jarman, the South Australian centreman, has had some good touches. Good mark. Andrew Taylor way down from centre half forward. He's had a great pair of hands. Puts it back to his position, centre half forward, but kicked it straight to a Western Australian jumper.
I reckon at this point he's just about pinched the Simpson medal off Kickett. Guy McKenna's playing superb football.
Was he ever, but it wasn't straight back to the...
Thanks very much.
They're in for.
It's kick to kick here. They kick to each
Consistent
other.
anyway.
Taylor gets a hand pass across to Lindsay. Lindsay goes down towards full forward. What a beautiful pass. Mandamaker on the lead, and he'll shoot at goal from about 30 metres out. Well, I'm getting the feeling the South Australians, and this is a worry for Western Australia, don't think Western Australia are much good.
Well, I'm still waiting as that picture developed there, or enlarged, for the full-back to come into it, and he didn't. He's that far behind.
There goes Rudy Mandamaker. No chant of Rudy here. He puts it off to the right-hand side, and through it goes for a minor score. So South Australia 6-3, Western Australia 2-4. A minute and a half of time on gone. First term, the WACA ground under lights as Campbell kicks in. Intended for number 25. That was Brown, who was up, couldn't take the mark. It spills off his hands and goes out of bounds on the 50-metre line. A crowd of about, well, battling to be 10,000, I'd suggest. Huddled in there. That was good by Mandamaker over the back of the pack. It comes to Abernathy. And the hand pass from McDermott, but his kick is just off target, and through it goes for a minor score. So 6-4 to 2-4. Bruce Abernathy, after a stint in the VFL back in South Australia. Clinton Brown going to the outer side. Kicks high towards half-back. Wilkinson is up in front, and from the side, Taylor. It falls to Buick. Buick gets the hand pass over Carey, and gathers his own hand pass. As a result, he went close to running the distance. Ball on the outer side. Managlio was committed to that one. Brilliantly done. Managlio pushed in the back by Abernathy, and he'll get the free kick.
Well, he gave the free kick away, Dennis, but I don't think he'd mind that too much. But Managlio was on the break. He's also got a 15-metre penalty. But he's still too far out. He'll be kicking from outside 50 metres, but that was a fair enough free kick. I think South Australia, no regrets about that, I don't believe.
No, it was definitely there, Eric, as Managlio goes in long. Here's a chance off Bubner in front. Gee, that was a good, strong mark. He had to fight for front spot there too, and he won it against Clinton Browning. So it's Bubner who'll go short. There are loose players everywhere for South Australia. May not come off, though, as Cocker punches away. Anderson, who opened well for South Australia, looks for Hart. Hart traps the ball well, gives it back to Anderson, who is playing as well in this first quarter as I've seen him play for a long time. No mark taken down there by Grant Campbell. The whistle is gone, and it's a free kick to South Australia for a push. And that one will be taken by Clayton Lamb. Ross Gibbs took off very quickly, but it's going to come unstuck for South Australia. Western Australia bring it to the grandstand side of the ground. Oh, Peake's got a couple of bad bounces of late. Andrew Jarman just waited back, gave it to his brother Darren Jarman. Now Ross Gibbs, as I said, loves to kick goals. That is evidence of that fact. He put it through for his second goal, Ross Gibbs. So South Australia now 7-4, Western Australia 2-4.
I'll concede that Peake got a bad bounce, Peter, but I'd also suggest that a year or two ago, Brian Peake would have gathered that on the full. I don't believe he made a total commitment. There's a very, very good kick for goal by Gibbs. It snuck in quite well on the finish, but I reckon that Brian Peake had the opportunity to take that ball on the full and didn't move to approach it as his usual confident self, and it cost WA dearly.
Very close to quarter time. Be interesting comment there. I haven't seen as much of Peake as you have, but I'll kick it centre-half forward from the Peake for the Peake kick. There's a free kick going to Peter Managlio. He's at the 50-metre line. Superb conditions here at the WACA as Managlio goes up to full forward. Oh, Bremen made top position. Couldn't take the mark, though. It's Bubner again who wields a path through the pack, puts it in towards Phillips. A chance out there for Colin Waterson, but nowhere to go. Scott Salisbury got a handball of sorts away, but it's gone over the line. In fact, on the full boot. It came off a player's boot there, so it's Scott Salisbury's free kick.
Off Watson's boot, I think. So Salisbury has the ball on the outer side. He drives it towards centre wing. In front is Anderson. Was it Taylor? Taylor on the siren. Knocked away by Wilkinson. Quarter time then here at the WACA ground in South Australia. A barnstorming first term. They lead 7-4 to 2-4, but it's more, I think, the manner in which they got those 7 goals that's the cause for concern for Western Australia at the present time. Checking the goal scorers, 2 to Ross Gibbs and singles to Hart, Aish, Darren Jarman, Anderson and Taylor. And for Western Australia, their goals have come from Waterson and Bremen. Quarter time at the WACA. We'll be back with more of the action shortly. Australia lead it by 30 points. Bounce favours Carey, but Cocker comes and knocks it towards half forward. In goes Kickett, falls over on the pitch area. Whittlesey lent a good shepherd, comes away, stumbles on knees, gets it out wide, taken by Anderson. Anderson to Aish, and Aish is away. Down towards half forward, kicks towards the pocket. McKenna's in front. He's played a fine game. He's got the free kick down there.
He's played very well. I know Eric was impressed with him in the first quarter. He made a couple of errors, but he chances his arm. There's a lot of back pocket players who have done that in recent years. Ross Gibbs is one of them. But they're still very effective players, as Morton it was who got a long kick away and was cut off, though, by Whittlesey. That left half back. Whittlesey's recent form in Adelaide has been very good. He's the Sturt captain. Good mark there in front by Darren Jarman. An exciting player who can really find a man with disposals like that. Aish has got it, left half forward flank. It's a lot of movement up forward. Clayton Lamb is going to mark that very easily, and You can see that from a long way away. Clayton Lamb is on the 50-metre line, and that normally wouldn't present a problem for him. We'll see how he goes against the breeze. Very powerful kick, Clayton Lamb. It's gone right into the square. A big leap there, but no mark taken. Off hands a point. South Australia 7-5, Western Australia 2-4.
Okay, Peter, let's go down to Ken McCauley now.
Thanks very much, Dennis. Well, I listened to John Todd, and John Todd has assured the players that it's certainly not a minefield out there. Players aren't taking risks. There's no tackles being laid, and virtually he's very, very disgusted with the lack of commitment. He's told his players to forget about that first quarter, start to redeem themselves and get involved.
Throwing on the outer side then. Ken should be the coach. Lee's got the ball. He swings it around the outer side wing. Going back, the mark was missed by South Australia. Kick it brilliantly. Tackled well by McDermott, though. Goes to ground. It's jarred free. Picked up by Cocker. Too slow. Salisbury crashes into him. Abernathy goes in on top of the West Australian on the ground. Golding. At the base of all of that is Carey. And we'll have a ball up on the outer side. 7-5 to 2-4 for a disappointing crowd here at the WACA. Carey flicks it backward of the pack. Managlio goes in, falls over. Carey does likewise. Jarman only as far as Golding. On top of him, McDermott. And they tie it up yet again. So WA have got to adjust the tempo. It was played at South Australia's pace in the first quarter. They really had ample time to do much as they liked. Carey is up. Second attempt tried to get it down. Jarman knocked it away. Lee was taken high, and Lee will get the free kick across half back. Gets the hand pass to Wake, and Western Australia swing the ball towards the centre area.
Yeah, only to find Greg Anderson, though, who's playing very well. A penetrating kick, looking for his captain, Bruce Lindsay, who was up far too early, close to the boundary line, and the whistle is gone as Guy McKenna takes it across the line. Yeah, I don't know there's a great deal available to Western Australia at the moment by way of options. Peter Carey's winning ruck too easily. It was Taylor down to McDermott. It was a good punch away from Mandamaker on that occasion. Buick with a chance. The players for Western Australia falling over out there, and it's a good tackle by Buick against the South Australian player there for the free kick. Wilkinson was the running player, puts it up to right half forward flank, while Phillips made good position there against Waterson. Put the movement out, but it's taken over the line. There'll be a throw in right half forward flank here for Western Australia.
Very static, aren't they, up forward? Western Australia having to work very, very hard to get the ball across half forward, and not a lot of method at all at that moment.
Waterson trying to get the push down. In fact, he did, but it was Greg Phillips all too easily. There are South Australian players everywhere in their defence, backing each other up. Now Abernathy hooks around the corner to Whittlesea, who has got a big space there, got the handball over Campbell. It's at right half forward flank now. Lamb couldn't pick it up. Here's a chance for Western Australia now as McKenna's run way down from the back pocket, but it's gone out just the attack side of centre wing for the Westerners.
One player WA needed. In the back, not according to the umpire. Umpire ball. He'll move in to bounce it down just inside the 50-metre line. One of WA's most experienced umpires puts it down. Good work by Mandamaker. Ball fell at his feet. Watson goes in and was claimed high, and Watson will get the free kick across half back. South Australia 7-5, Western Australia 2-4. Watson comes grandstand side, intended for Peak. Too much carry on the ball. Phillips tries to knock it away, then succeeds in knocking it across the boundary line. South Australia, of course, eyeing off the Australian Championship. They win tonight. It's theirs. They defeated Victoria in that State of Origin game a few weeks back by 4 points. Coming away is Watson. Goes towards half forward. Kick it in from the side. In front was Burgess. Storming out down there is Rogers. Going in the opposite direction was Waterson. Over the ball is Lee. There's going to be a West Australian free kick. It'll be taken by Waterson. And this will give us a chance to assess the breeze. No, he goes for the short pass towards the pocket. Out in front. Almost the mark down there for Western Australia. In fact, it's going to be a free to Hutton. Hutton was the flyer. Buick had the crumbs. Hutton on the ground. One of the 4 interchange players then for Western Australia. He normally is a superb mark, and as you saw there, cannoning into him was Abernathy coming in the other direction, so the free kick was paid. Here's Hutton. Can he stimulate this forward line for Western Australia? Goes Goldwood, pretty good kick. He puts it through.
Well, there's no doubt that WA has been badly beaten, I believe, all over the ground in the aerial duels. At best, they can nullify the South Australians. But Hutton is a player who has got a great leap and one of the best pair of hands I've ever seen. So perhaps his presence up in the forward line will do a little bit to stimulate them. As you can see by that scoreline, they certainly need plenty of that. And also they need more from the big ruckman Cocker, because at the moment Carey's doing it very, very easily.
Yeah, Western Australia were losing that centre square, although having said that, Cocker goes up and smashes it to centre half forward. Kicking off the ground was Mark Watson. Right half forward flank, here's Kickett. He brings the crowd to its feet. Shoots a handball over the top, a chance for Bremen. Tries to get through. He's got nowhere to go now. Lost the ball. Overplayed it. The handball comes out to Kickett. And he finally gets his boot for ball, and that's a brilliant centering straight to Stephen Golding. And the Dennis committee is delighted. He thinks Kickett is the best player he's ever seen, I think.
Sir Derek, I think he called him. And Dennis committee damn near had pups.
Here's Derek Hugh.
He did it all by himself, though, didn't he? There's not a lot of support down there, and 2 or 3 times he gave them openings, and they couldn't take them. This time Golding has, and kicked badly.
He pushed it out to the left, and nearly a mark taken down there. I think the South Australian defenders thought it was long enough, but it's off hands for a point. But Dennis, I would think that in the last 5 minutes that there's been the momentum that the Westerners have created would give their coach a bit of heart.
Yes, they're looking better. Kick it on the forward line, giving them something. It's just that I think he was rather shabbily treated not being an Eagle this season. Ball goes to the outer side. This is Hutton. Hutton in a congested space, drives it back into the forward line. Bremen works his way to the front, but well played by Rogers. He was a star against Victoria. He eclipsed Dermot Brereton to the extent that Brereton was taken off the ground and proceeded to have a big night as Burgess drives around the outer side for South Australia. Wilkinson over the top of Taylor. Could have almost been a free kick. Slaps it out of bounds and will have a boundary throw in. There's Taylor. Andrew Taylor doing the ruck work on the forward line. Meetings between these two sides go back a ways, as you can see. So Taylor and Campbell, centre-half forward and centre-half back respectively, become the ruckman for their sides in that area. And now Campbell's getting a free kick on the outer side. 7-5 to 3-5. We've played about 10 minutes in this second term. Well, approaching 9.
Grant Campbell kicks long, kick it up in the middle of the pack. 2 grabs, not paid.
Nagler should get a kick out of that, and has.
He should be an umpire, Eric. He's got it all right.
Don't tell him that.
One each evening's not bad, Peter. That's it. Don't expect any more.
Right, that's it. Managlia is at half forward now. He's got 15 metres as well. So with the breeze, which we understand is at his back, can he kick a goal? Oh, there's a push down there. An umpire ball saw it into the back of Bubner. And so South Australia will get out of trouble. South Australians don't really like umpire Mike Ball. He umpired in 1984, and
I suppose you're going to tell us about the point, are you?
no, I'm not going to mention it. No, I wouldn't do that. It's off hands out there. So it's a Peter Carey free kick.
I think he's heard what you had to say, because he's just, we're told, dispensed with the microphone out there, and he's muttering about Peter Marker out across the WA half-forward line.
He can't hear us, can he?
I think he can. It's a two-way deal.
Oh, I think he's a top bloke anyway. But,
Too late now. He's taking the mic out.
Abernethy's got it on centre wing.
Abernethy goes down towards half-forward with a high kick. Taylor is down there working against Wilkinson. It falls at their feet. It's picked up by Jarman. Ample time to thread his way through the traffic and go towards half-forward. Unable to hang on down there was Lamb. Recovers well. Lays it back to Anderson. Anderson inside 50. Goes Goldwood. What's he done? He's just missed. Good cooperative football on the build-up from South Australia. Again, time. Jarman showing plenty of that as he came away from that congestion. Looked down the ground and had plenty of options down there.
Well, that was a contrast, wasn't it? The ease and precision with which South Australia went forward as against the scrambling, which has really been the nature of West Australia's forward thrusts.
Abernethy's got a free on the outer side.
He got that one for a high tackle, and he'll go short if he sees any movement. He's done just that. Manamaker's out of the blocks and takes a good mark. Well, that was hard because he had bodies in front of him. He had hands waving around in front of him. He had to judge it right through to his hands. He did just that, and that'll do wonders for his confidence.
Yes, in fact, that kick had to be inch perfect or centimetre perfect, because not only in front of him, Peter, I think there's one to the side and one right at his back, and Guy McKenna just couldn't quite intercept it. Here's a chance for South Australia to get the equaliser for this quarter.
Manamaker His kick pushes out to the right on this occasion, so he is inaccurate. It's unlike him, but you're mentioning the kick, Eric. I think that most judges in South Australia rate Abernethy to be the best kicker of a ball in Adelaide. It's certainly a superb kick. It's punched away. It's gone out of bounds. Left half forward flank for South Australia. We're past 11 minutes now. 7-7 the Croatians. Western Australia 3-5.
Boundary throw in then. Parker's on the ground in place of Carey. Slaps it forward. A chance for Anderson, but Parker comes again. Gets a hand pass to Jarman. Jarman on the boundary line. Pulls it back. That's a good kick. Down towards the 25-metre line. Over the top came Campbell. Knocked it away. Darren Jarman with a chance now. He's tackled by McKenna. That's holding the ball, and McKenna will take the free kick. McKenna's got it now. White goes back to square up with Hart as the ball goes towards the outer side. Managlio right on the boundary line. Clever kick around the corner. Got it to Golding. Back to Managlio. Managlio over the top. The breaker coming up from the back pocket is McKenna. He goes around the outer side. Kicks it out of bounds on the full. Wasteful.
Yeah, spoiled a fairly intelligent piece of football by a lot of players and destroyed it with a casual kick.
Burgess back towards half forward. Wake at the fall of the ball through his fingertips. Wilkinson got it on the ground, claiming him as McDermott. Haven't seen a lot of McDermott tonight. He hasn't been required, but he's normally a prolific kick getter.
Yes, he is, Dennis. I thought he was just about our best player against Victoria, along with perhaps Mark Nayley. Max Parker's on the ground for South Australia now. Off hands to Andrew Jarman. He measures out Bruce Lindsay, South Australian captain. Manamaker's on a lead. He's running in towards centre half forward. Manamaker up, couldn't mark the ball. Off hands now, Darryl Hart in there, but the tackling was too good. Two Western Australians applied, the big bear hug. That was Morton and McKenna. So a bounce down at centre half forward, about 35 metres from the South Australian goal. Manamaker's palm went straight to Watson. Max Parker cut it off in front of Shane Cocker. Short went Max Parker, and he's found Clayton Lamb, right half forward flank. A penetrating kick is Clayton Lamb. It's been in outstanding form for his club side, West Adelaide.
This will test you guys in your wind interpretation, because you're kicking into teeth of whatever is there, and he's kicked it a pretty long way.
He's a good kick, Eric. He does kick a long way. 8-7 South Australia, Western Australia 3-5.
Over the top, doing better. Pumps it down to half forward. Golding intercepted by Lindsay. Hooks it around the corner towards the outer side. Got a foot race going out there then. Peter Managlio leads in the race. Taylor coming down. Managlio, who's been a good player since he came onto the ground, hooks it around the outer side. High kick coming across is Phillips, and he's content to get it to the boundary, and we'll have a throw in out there. Quarter time, it was 30 points the difference. John Todd on the phone. In the background, Les Mummy. In the foreground, Ken Armstrong. One down by Parker. Salisbury out of the pack as far as Managlio. The high kick wobbles across the half-forward line. Phillips in the road for South Australia. Phillips wasting no time. Plays on. Brings it grandstand side. Darren Jarman. That was a good mark. Fine mark in front of the West Australian vice-captain Morton.
Jarman takes off and kicks long. Kicks very long indeed. Right up to centre half forward. The bump comes. It went to McKenna. He passes off, and that ball finds Scott Rowland. Rowland's going to play it on immediately. I don't know about the coordination of the big man, but he's in there trying pretty hard, Shane Cocker. He's lifted his game a fair bit too. I thought that Peter Carey took him apart earlier in the game, but in the ruck work at least, he's lifted a fair bit. So Max Parker is beaten again to the punch by Cocker, but he gave it straight to the South Australian captain in Lindsay. He goes to centre half forward. A big leap out there by Grant Campbell. Off hands to Manamaker. Dribbled one out to Taylor. Taylor shoots it long, looking for Darren Jarman. In comes Greg Anderson for South Australia, and it comes off his boot and rolls out of bounds. Left half forward flank down there for South Australia. I thought that the first 10 minutes was all Western Australia, but in the last couple, South Australia has come back strong. Manamaker tried to take it away. Aish was in a lot of bother in there, and umpire Mike Ball is going to bounce it down. Left half forward flank for South Australia.
Michael Aish giving up the ball in to umpire Ball. Comes the bounce. Mandamaker doing the ruck work. Over the top of Campbell. Slapped wide. Taken by Aish. No, he left it behind. It's picked up by Lee. He's in trouble. Wanted too long. It's jarred free to McDermott to Aish. Aish on the 50-metre line. Great vision. Centres the ball and finds Taylor. Hart is on for the short one. He thinks about that. Now he's going for distance. Long down towards full forward. There's a spare man down in the pocket. That's McDermott. Oh, it's Lamb down there.
That has got to be... Well, what can you say? That was pathetic in the extreme by West Australia all the way down the line. A token slap at the ball by Campbell, and yet he did have time, in my opinion, to get there and contest. And Clayton Lamb, who doesn't miss, Peter Marcus told us, and we saw that a moment ago, suit a bit of an angle, but will suit the left footer. But very, very feeble defensive football by Western Australia.
Chance to kick his second goal and stretch the lead for South Australia. When he comes, kicks from about 15 metres and puts it right through. The 9th goal on the board for South Australia.
The element of contest is certainly disappearing very much from this game, and it's now becoming a case of West Australia saving face, so obviously a long way to go. This is the high kick coming in, which I honestly believed, looking at Campbell, number 14, really had a look at the ball and then belatedly made a token gesture at spoiling, but I don't think he did anything near enough. An easy goal for South Australia.
Well, Brown had a bit of a dilemma there because I mentioned Hart in short, and Brown peeled off to go to him, and the kick came over the top.
South Australia's lead is 38 points, and perhaps the tougher local competition in Adelaide now starting to pay dividends as Western Australia, through Stephen Golding, get a quick kick up to centre-half forward. Freeman comes way up from the forward pocket, playing the ball very well in front of him, but perhaps he overplayed it as McDermott got one out. Peake traps the ball, or tries to. Gee, Freeman's gone all the way, but every time he picks the ball up, he runs into a brick wall. Comes out the back door now as Anderson skewed a handball out. Golding might get a free kick in there as he worked pretty hard, Stephen Golding, and he's got it at centre-half back. It's a bit more desperation early in this quarter by Western Australia as Buick got the handball out. Way up to the leading full forward. He puts one hand up. He's going to get a free kick. He put one hand up, and umpire Ball was quick to acknowledge that he was being held. So it's Brent Hutton who kicked Western Australia's only goal earlier this quarter with another chance from an almost identical position too. It's an understatement to say they don't need it, but what a delightful kick. Eric, that's a fantastic kicking. Never looked like it was going to miss. Western Australia 4-5, South Australia 9-7.
Goals for the quarter for Brett Hutton. Yes, he's a player that perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, Peter, had played for Swan Districts over here, looked as though he could have become anything, maybe further back than that. 4 years, Dennis?
Yep.
He came on the scene as a very, very spectacular and very, very talented full forward, and then sort of lost confidence or something. He's now being used perhaps equally at each end of the ground and hasn't really gone on with it as well as he could have, but certainly possesses great skills.
Corns down there sharing a joke. A little unusual. Well, a little unusual. There's Peake out of the centre for Western Australia towards their half-forward line. Burgess backs himself against the ball and does it brilliantly. A hand pass over the top to no one in particular. Butters up again, does Burgess. Lays it off to Abernathy. Abernathy drives down towards full forward from behind Brown, intent on destruction. Ball runs free. It comes to Wake. Wake in the back pocket. Searching hand pass. Taken out wide. Hetherington back to Campbell. Campbell threads his way through the traffic, and what? He's been knocked off for running too far, or was it an illegitimate hand pass?
I really didn't pick that up. I was watching the play further down the ground and see what was available to him.
It was the Shepherd that was wrong, I think, on Hetherington.
Yeah, that's right. It was Hetherington was cutting McDermott's run for the tackle, and umpire Ball, was it, who gave the free kick?
Yes, it was. There's McDermott from outside 50 towards the 25-metre line in a more central situation. Campbell goes in, and he'll get the free kick, I think. Grant Campbell, the West Australian centre-half back.
He's certainly a lot more committed on that occasion as he gave it over to Buick, who seems to get most of his kicks in defence. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's playing on the wing. Peter Managlio kicked it up forward, kick it up again. Oh, that's a great mark kick it. And he got the handball off. Peake goes in long for Western Australia, although perhaps not as well placed as it could have been, and taking off very quickly for the Southerners was Andrew Rogers, and he pushed it out as Graham Corns watches on.
Fairly calm character, Graham Corns, after the big win against Victoria. Peter will watch him closely, and he didn't show a great deal of emotion, looked relieved more than anything else.
Yeah, he was actually. The smile on his face you saw before is unusual, Eric, particularly during a match. As Greg Phillips goes for the line to the dismay of the Western Australian supporters. Here's your man.
Yes. Let's take a look at Derek taking a mark. That is a good mark, strong mark.
Just in case you aren't aware, Peter, Dennis Cometti did actually coach Derek Kickett in his early career.
Just for the one season. I can claim none of what he does, but he's a fine footballer, Derek Kickett.
You discovered him.
Apart from that, yes. There's Phillips going towards centre field. Battling down there, Taylor and Wilkinson. And Wilkinson is penalised for hanging on to Taylor.
He could pose a handful for anybody, this Taylor at centre half forward. He's a very, very skilled player, isn't he?
Yeah. Big strapping customer as he drives it long. He can kick it a long way too. Leaping from behind down there was Brown. Leading back in the race is Campbell. Can he keep it in play? No, he's content to run it across the boundary line. 22.5 minutes gone. 9-7 to 4-5. South Australia lead. The crowd a little restless. They want more from Western Australia. WA football, the WAFL component at least, couldn't stand a blowout tonight. A laugher, as they say. And the players must be well aware of that.
Who says that?
Some Yank. An American.
Well, I won't take that one back to Adelaide as the handball comes out. As Gavin Waite tries to push it out of defence, but not to great effect. They're calling holding the ball down there, but it won't be given.
Well, it could have been, Peter, had McKenna applied a tackle, but he did little more than slump across the South Australian, so really didn't tackle him, I don't suppose.
Yeah, good comment. Parker put his hand on the ball. It's Buick again who got the handball out to Peake, who hasn't really had a big game. Kickett's in front, but the thump comes from Burgess from South Australia. Very slippery in there in the middle as Whittlesea runs through the mud. Kickett again goes in very hard. Kicking off the ground out there was Kim Hetherington for Western Australia, but it's Scott Salisbury for South Australia who pushes it into the open space way out there on right half forward flank. Darren Jarman was there, also Noel Morton, the Western Australian vice captain. But it's gone out. We'll see a throw in right half forward flank for South Australia. 32 points. Good lead for South Australia. They've worked pretty hard for it. Hart. Andrew Jarman, who's a real star. Mandamaker. Puts the left hand out. Couldn't grab the ball. Plenty of opposition on Mandamaker. And interestingly enough, Dennis, our two key forward positions, Mandamaker and Taylor, both at a young age were snared from Victoria, which you don't often see.
No, they don't give them away too often, do they? Buick now having a run on the ball, it seems, and giving some life. That could have almost been holding the ball, and Michael Aisha's making the point to umpire ball there.
Credit here to Clinton Brown at full back too. He's spoiling rather well, isn't he? At least keeping the big fella Mandamaker out of it.
Problems are around the packs, aren't they? There's the man you were talking of, Brown taking the mark close to goal. Where will he go? Decides to go towards the outer side with a high kick. In front is Parker. Over the top is knocked away by Waterson. Standing his ground to his Hart, and I think Hart's going to get a free kick. Well, the courage of nothing else. Hart on the outer side. Darryl Hart from North Adelaide to take this kick too far out to score. One of the 7 logos goes in short. And this is Lamb. Now, Lamb, as we've seen, can kick it a long way. He'll kick from about 55, 60 metres out. In fact, he doesn't go that close to the man on the mark. Just lobs it towards the 25-metre line, and Mandamaker at the second attempt takes a strong mark. Despite some good opposition from Brown, Brown did all he could. He was wearing him like a glove. He tried to take the arm twice, and Mandamaker got the deflection down to his own advantage, and now will shoot at goal from about 25 metres out.
Yes, and the height deficiency there, or the difference between the two, was very, very evident in that effort. I don't think Clinton Brown really could have realistically been expected to do much more. It just wasn't enough.
Rudy Mandamaker. Here he comes. And he steers it through. Another one to South Australia. 10-7, 4-5.
Browning, but a good mark
back there, or a free kick will go to Tony Burgess. Thought about handballing off to Scott Salisbury, but elects to go to the outer side of the ground. Phillips used his body well there to give Bubner a chance, but with sheer pace, the Western Australians looked like they were going to run it forward then, but out the back door it was Abernethy who passed off to Parker. Max Parker gives it back to Bruce Abernethy, who shoots it up towards Clayton Lamb. A big leap out there from Taylor, but he couldn't take the mark. So it's a great half-forward flank. South Australia in time on in this second quarter, looking to have full control of the game. Grant Campbell is number 14. He'll contest the ruck against Max Parker. Hart again, who's getting telling touches now. South Australia's premier rover. Clayton Lamb shot one out to McDermott. Lindsay, they're going to handball this one all the way. Andrew Jarman from about 20 metres out misses. So that's a bit of an anticlimax there if you're a South Australian. 10-8 South Australia, Western Australia 4-5.
Nice build-up. Peter Carey cracks a smile on the bench as the short one comes into Morton. And I think tonight is underlining what so many people expected or suspected if they didn't really think it was a fact of life, and that is that the lack of tempo in WAFL football now with the losses. As Derek Kickett slips on the ball at half-forward, the siren sounds for half-time. South Australia lead 10-8 to 4-5. Just making the point there, Eric, that the tempo in club games now perhaps is bearing a legacy out there in this clash against South Australia.
Well, yes, fairly predictable, I guess, because the standard obviously would drop considerably as we see the South Australian coach leave the arena. Very, very contented, I'm sure, with a very substantial lead there. Obviously, there's players out there, there's no use naming them, there's many of them who have been performing at very high levels in our club football in the last few weeks, and deservedly are in the stateside, but have been found out well and truly against the very, very classy South Australians, who obviously are enjoying a greater depth and a greater tempo of club football, and there's not a lot you can do about that. There's probably 2 or 3 players who arguably, depending on your point of view, could have been in the side for WA who aren't, but I don't think overall it would have made a great deal of difference no matter what side was fielded.
The WA rooms then, Scott Rowland. Ryan Peake in the half-time deficit is 39 points. They trailed by 30 points at quarter time. This WA side, just checking the goal scorers. For South Australia, Gibbs has 2, Lamb has 2, and singles to Hart, Aish, Jarman, that's Darren Jarman, Anderson, Taylor and Mandamaker, and for Western Australia, Hutton has 2, both in that term, and singles to Waterson and Bremen. Half-time then, WA with the job ahead of them. The lights are dimming for WA's prospects at the WACA ground. We'll be back shortly. Points. Umpire Hilton bounces it down. Let's see if we can see a WA resurgence. Waterson on the ball wins it down. Now a chance for them to go forward. Rowland falls over, knocked on by Golding. Battling in there is McDermott on all fours for South Australia. Knocked out by Carey. A chance for Lindsay. This is Morton. Gets the hand pass to Golding. Back comes Lindsay for South Australia. Well played by Morton. Shovels a hand pass out. Carey upended by little Watson. Jarman, the clever hand pass to Aish. The composure of the South Australians there again as Jarman goes long into the forward pocket. Widemaker takes the mark, or Mandamaker rather, takes the mark down there, but the free kick is going to Brown.
And he is one of the more competitive West Australians, actually, Clinton Brown. Big job against the big fella, but he's done it pretty well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Eric. He's had a hard job to do too, because Mandamaker has had the ball fed in there pretty well. Gavin Waite got the kick away, and he's put it out towards centre wing, and Peake is out there. He took the mark in front of Andrew Taylor. Peake plays on immediately, looking for Buick. Good puncture away came from Whittlesea against Buick, and Whittlesea chances his arm pretty well there. He showed a lot of courage as he made ground for South Australia and pushed it up towards their left half-forward flank. Well, there was a little bit more aggression there in that opening as we saw Peter Carey knocked over, and just even something like that can spread right throughout the team, and they can lift in their endeavour. Aish got the handball out to Andrew Jarman, who really has been a star for South Australia. Here's a chance now for Hetherington, was it, as he went through it. Came back there to Andrew Jarman, who's very constructive. Gives it to his captain, Bruce Lindsay, who in turn goes short to McDermott, who takes the mark low to the ground.
I thought the two West Australian players converged on the ball. One was running towards his own goals, the other wasn't. And the wrong man went for the ball, I think. He had no hope in the world of picking up at full pace and turning around and doing anything with it. And the player coming towards the ball, I can't remember who they were, had the first call on, I thought, and didn't go for it. And I think that's made a bit of an opening here for South Australia.
A bit of inexperience in the side, although the kick from McDermott spears off to the left. Did it go through for a point? Yes, the umpire has indicated that. So it's 10-8 South Australia, Western Australia 4-5.
There's Brown going towards the outer side, and the mark is taken by Wilkinson. Wilkinson chips in short, gives the ball away, taken by McDermott. On the overlap is Anderson from inside the 50-metre line. He kicks down a full forward. Mandamaker got a hand of that one. In any case, it was offline, headed for a behind. He simply helped it on its way. So 10-10 now, plays 4-5 as Brown kicks in once more towards the outer side. In from the side, Anderson couldn't hang on. It falls to McDermott, who's lively. Across to Lamb it comes. Lamb with a long kick. Just off target. He's kicked 2 goals so far. And McDermott, who wasn't an influential player in the first half, certainly making his presence felt early in this third term. Brown, a shocking kick down the middle. In goes Watson, couldn't control it. McDermott once more, knocked on by Lindsay, taken by Peake. Hurried kick back towards centre field. Carey is in the road, lays the ball off. It's taken by Anderson. 60 metres out. Anderson goes long down towards full forward, and Brown, who's been a good player, works his way to the front and marks in front of Rudy Mandamaker.
He worked his way to the front fantastically then. He really didn't have a chance initially, but he's a good player. Golding, the handball, just not good enough. Jarman gave it to Mandamaker. That was Andrew Jarman, and it's as easy as that. No, it's hit the post. So Mandamaker is inaccurate this evening.
Peter, I think one thing worth mentioning here too, that despite the fact that West Australia's have got shortcomings, I think the South Australian approach has been fantastic. Evidence there by Golding strolling away down the outer wing to clear, pursued, persistent at, and finally a mistake was made, and it should have been a goal to South Australia.
Yeah, I'd agree. They've worked very hard.
Tackling superbly, I believe.
They're making it hard. Michael Aish gets around the player on the mark, uses the left boot. Now, Andrew Taylor, he's a stronger mark in front, couldn't hold it. Penetrating handball comes out towards Morton. The ball is not out, though. It's picked up there by Wilkinson. He's going to run out of trouble for Western Australia. Gets past Carey. Got the handball out. So Western Australia a chance now as they go up past centre wing. Phillips in front is going to be paid the mark. Lucky. Only just, Eric.
Yes, just barely. I wouldn't have.
So this is Phillips on the outer side. Just interesting to watch the formation WA have gone into this second half with. John Todd made the point, according to Ken McCauley, as Taylor takes a good mark and lays the ball off to Lindsay, that Kickett and Managlio were 2 players who were putting in. They've been stranded so far on the forward line. There's the ball. Managlio was up on the ball on that occasion, so he's having a run, and that's good thinking by Todd. And he goes again. Hetherington's given away a free kick, I fancy, down there. Managlio showed the courage initially. We're just talking about him. He went back to spoil and knocked that ball towards the boundary line. South Australia worked it back in, and now Salisbury, who obviously came down the ground with Managlio, has a chance to score from about 30 metres out. Salisbury clearly held without it, as you can see.
In fairness to Hetherington from behind, I guess he didn't have a good view of all that.
There goes the kick from Salisbury, and he hits the post. So a couple of them to start proceedings for South Australia in this term. 10-13 to 4-5.
I think things are looking even more ominous. The ball has been locked into that 50-metre circle for South Australia since the start of the quarter practically. 2 posters, 3 other points. Just a matter of time, I think.
Brown goes to the outer side of the ground. Waterson out there, and Andrew Taylor for South Australia couldn't mark it. Fighting for the ball is Peter Managlio. Comes back to Peter Carey. Holding the ball, they yell, but they won't get a free kick out there. There'll be a throw-in left half-forward flank for South Australia. His Kickett is out of the action at the moment. In the first quarter, he played across that half-back line, and he was in everything. Not so this quarter, as Carey lays it off to McDermott. Mandamaker's in front this time, but again Brown put a hand to it, pushed it away. A kick away there by Grant Campbell. Coming in, Darren Jarman. It's Kevin Harris for South Australia. Centres the ball brilliantly to Lindsay. And that was super football by Harris. Little Woodville rover who a favourite amongst crowds in Adelaide because he's a real goer. With short piston-like legs that just pump away and projecting forward, and he's a top little rover in South Australia.
Well, it's only their inaccuracy that's sparing West Australia at the moment, Peter. 6 points now they're tallying, and West Australia really hasn't made a forward sortie about 7 minutes into the quarter.
Golding plays on, brings it grandstand side. Off hands a chance for Managlio. He's confronted, goes to ground. It was a good tackle applied by Salisbury. Wake has his kick blanketed by Jarman. Now it's with Anderson from the hand pass from McDermott. Anderson goes out wide. Great vision. And Carey drifting into open space. The big veteran moves off. Tries for the spiral putt. It's not a good one. Wilkinson couldn't hang on. Golding fists away. It's picked up by Darren Jarman. He pulls it back far too much. It goes right across the face of goal. Up was Lamb. It's knocked away by Campbell. Out of bounds. And a boundary throw-in coming up in that forward pocket. So 10-14 to 4-5.
Now, that was a better spoil by Campbell. I talked about one in the second quarter where I don't believe he made a commitment. He did that time, and the result was there.
Mandamaker and Campbell doing the ruck work down there. Over the top comes Lindsay. Clean possession. He's claimed by McKenna. Diving on top of the ball with courage is Graham Campbell. But the umpire calls for it again. So about 9 minutes gone in this third term. Western Australia trailed by 39 points at half-time. And that's been further extended by South Australia. Campbell and Mandamaker, one down by Campbell. Watson, who's been a quiet player this evening, paddles the ball towards the boundary line. Anderson treads the light, fantastic, couldn't keep it in. Wake confronts Anderson, and I don't know what Wake is riled about. Anderson smiles, and you can see the South Australians not falling for anything out there at the moment. They know they've got this game by the scruff of the neck, and that sort of thing isn't going to suck them in.
There'd be hardly any point to get involved in that at this stage of the game. As Waterson for Western Australia is in ruck now against Carey. Peake read the ball down to the ground pretty well. Lindsay got thrown away then. Waterson in there fighting hard. Taps it out cleverly. But Peter Carey, who's doing a lot of work for South Australia, sees the ball go over the line. I think Graham Corns has got a plan marked out for Carey. He's going to let him run as hard as he can this quarter, and Max Parker will replace him, perhaps even before the break. You never know. Carey put it down, and it's Watson now. Woland, but again out of bounds, and just no freedom of movement, no fluency at all, Eric.
But still, Peter, again, in that segment, I think you've got to give credit to the South Australians. Their tackling has been fierce, and just no space in which to move for the Western Australians.
Yes, good comment as McDermott again to Andrew Jarman. Darren Jarman, his kick was smothered very well then. And the ball is trapped in there at centre-half forward. And we'll see a bounce down executed by umpire Mike Ball.
Guy McKenna getting up there, number 5 for Western Australia. One of the better players. South Australia kicking with what breeze there is. Down towards the city end of the WACA ground as Carey wins it down decisively. McDermott should have got a free and does. He put his body in courageously. Dived over the ball.
Carey is dominating, but he's not really opposing any ruckman. Waterson and the other fellow doing a bit of ruck work, it's Campbell, neither of whom are ruckman.
There goes McDermott. He's been very lively in this term. That is a long kick down towards the forward pocket. It's off hands, out of bounds, despite the efforts of Wilkinson there. So just over 10 minutes gone in this third term. A pensive John Todd. There's a lot of football stacked in there, as you can see. That's his coaching record. Sandover medalist. An all-time young winner. Coming away as Watson, driving towards centre field. In front, missed by Phillips. It spills wide of the pack, brilliantly picked up by Peake. Peake goes into the forward line. Ironic cheers from the crowd. Throwing himself at the ball down there was Hutton. Hutton comes back and applies a tackle on Bubner, but South Australia work it out. This is Rogers. Whittlesey got it across to him. Rogers goes to the outer side. Carey up over the top. Fine mark, sweeping hand pass. Bounces obligingly for Harris. Harris storms to the 50-metre line. High kick down towards full forward. Ace interfered with. Poor defence.
Never in doubt, was it? Great mark started that off on half-back, and what a sad sight or sound that was. Derisive cheers from the West Australian crowd when West Australia went beyond the centre line, and that's not very nice. But a beautiful forward thrust, care of Peter Carey, should result in the first goal for the quarter.
Ace comes in, and he steers it through. In one sense, there's a crisis in confidence in WAFL football as the males go in from South Australia.
Graham Corns. Yeah, he doesn't look all that happy ever, does he, really, Graham? But I suppose at the end of the day he'll cheer up.
Oh, he has his moments.
Does he?
Well, I've seen him smile.
When was that?
Well, not at the footy. Yeah, notice that Peake is in a forward pocket now. He may be having a run on the ball, or he may have been banished, as it were, to the forward pocket. I guess that's too harsh a word, as Menaglio gets a kick out. And kicks long, but again, he just sprayed that kick forward. Menaglio. He's been a good player, though, for Western Australia. I think he's been a goer.
He's been a player that both Dennis and I have been impressed with for a long, long time. He's never quite reached the heights which he thinks I think he's capable of. He was never given a lot of opportunity at state level, actually.
No.
Yes, and Dennis, we might see Kickett come back into the game fairly soon too, because I mean, half forward's a pretty hard spot to play at the best of times, but when the ball's not coming down there, it's pretty hard to get it.
Yes. I think that was our tactic at half-time over the coffee, wasn't it? Kick it on the ball and everywhere. South Australia bring it away. This is Rogers. Great effort by Breeman. Forced the error. Taken by Thorne. Shocking kick. Most unlike him. It comes across to Hetherington, who's had a tough night. High up and under. Wobbles across the ground. Rogers was up. This is Breeman. Gets it back to Hetherington. He hooks it down towards the pocket wide of Menaglio. Out of bounds on the full. Whittlesey trots back dutifully to take the kick in the back pocket. South Australia 11-14. Western Australia 4-5. So it seems that the Australian champions will be South Australia. They won the State of Origin game against Victoria, and they're doing the job in fine style here tonight. Abernathy from behind, Taylor in from the side. No mark was taken. Harris put his body in. Back comes Taylor. Showing good desperation on the ground was Rowland. And the umpire Hilton, goes in to ball it up. And he's dressed for a stoush is Harris. The headgear on. Umpire Hilton to bounce it down on the other side.
So notice John Todd has got Peter Thorne in the centre now against Andrew Jarman, having moved Peake out perhaps to a run-on role, but Andrew Jarman's still dominant. Away goes Greg Anderson. Mandamaker's on a big lead from full forward, can't mark the ball. Lamb's handball initially looked good, but it didn't come off. There's McDermott, who's had a big third quarter. The umpire is going to come in and bounce that ball. That's umpire John Hilton from South Australia. South Australia, all through the game, has had the ability to run the ball from defence into the forward line with method. Western Australia, surprisingly, hasn't had that ability. Mandamaker's at centre-half forward. Can kick a long way, the big chap. Hooks it around the body, and that will go against Andrew Taylor in favour of the Western Australian defender, Clinton Brown. And Eric, I think he'd be your best player.
He's crept up there. Initially, it was kicked when he had the opportunity, then Guy McKenna. But probably, without doubt, in fact, now Brown would be my best player. Not so much in the volume of kicks, but in his effectiveness under extreme pressure.
Here's Kickett. Punched away that time by Burgess. Kickett has been kickless in this term. In fact, he hasn't had a hand pass or kick, as we have the boundary throw in on centre wing.
Pretty hard to do when you're one end of the ground and the ball is locked into the 50-metre line at the other.
Throw in then. Waterson tries to backhand it down. Jarman on his knees, gets it across to Harris. Harris runs towards the centre, spears the pass in low, looking for Taylor. Knocked away by Wilkinson, taken by Thorne. This is Menaglio, played well. Menaglio goes out wide, good kick too. And the mark is taken by Rowland. Rowland, forward of centre wing. Goes out wide, looking for Browning. No system on the forward line at all for Western Australia. Bubner comes across to mop up. 3 West Australians with a chance now. Breeman hand passes through the traffic. Well played by Whittlesey. And it will be a throw-in. I thought for a moment the umpire was going to knock him off for deliberate, but Whittlesey in mid-air, as you saw, content just to push it ahead of him and out of bounds as it turned out.
Right forward pocket for Western Australia, and the home crowd would love a score here as Phillips shoots a handball out. It comes back to Andrew Jarman. Pirouettes out of trouble brilliantly. Whittlesey showed a lot of courage to hold ground there. Jarman will get a free kick for a push in the back.
15 metres.
Yes, 15 metres as well, as Peter Thorne came in to stop him from generating any drive. I think Jarman would be just about South Australia's best player.
He's another player that's crept up, hasn't he? He's been consistent for the 3 and a bit or 2.5 quarters.
And all of his possessions mean something too, Eric. He rarely wastes the ball. Mandamaker got a movement out, and it's a free kick. That one is going to go to Gavin Wake against Andrew Taylor, who really did intend to hold him up. Player that's been out of the game for a while, Guy McKenna. He got it on, and Menaglio gets the kick forward. But again, Peter Carey cuts Kickett off. Just wouldn't let him get near the ball.
He's got a kick, I think, Kickett.
Kickett's got one, you're right. Well, it's taken him 17 minutes into the third quarter to get into the action.
He had to work pretty hard for that too, because there's plenty of opposition around the place, and he really persisted well. An area of his football which I believe has improved out of sight this season, his determination.
I think the South Australian players are very much aware of him too. Don't like him getting too many kicks. He's far too dangerous. But just as a football purist, you'd like to see him where the ball is. Vandermaker's off. Ross Gibbs is on. I wonder if Ross Gibbs has gone to full forward. I know it's a place he'd love to play. I don't think he's ever played there before, but he'd dearly love to be a full forward.
I've got to say, he did for me one day.
Did he? Really?
Yeah. Didn't hang on to any of his specky marks that day, though, but he tried for about 600.
Well, he has gone to full forward now, Dennis.
He'll love that, won't he? He'll be down there curling the mo. I see he's got one now, too. This is Watson. At right half forward, Watson sends it back down towards the pocket. Kickett was up, well knocked away by Whittlesey, and that was a great tackle applied by Salisbury. Down went Hutton, didn't know what hit him, and there's going to be a ball up.
You'll notice where Salisbury actually applied the tackle. It was very high, near the shoulder level. That's where he aims the tackle, Scott Salisbury. He's got into a bit of trouble with it sometimes, but he is a fierce tackler.
Like a python. Renders them useless. The ball goes towards the outer side. Off hands. A chance for Waterson. Breaks away from centre wing. Back into the forward line yet again. Big pack at the fall of the ball. And in front, a strong mark is taken by the big fellow. And what an ornament to the game he's been in South Australia, Peter.
It's been outstanding, yes. 405 games for Glenelg. His club in Glenelg next Saturday against Port Adelaide. He hasn't reached the day game aggregate of Kevin Bartlett yet. And, there are some people that say 400 games in Victoria means a fair bit more than 400 games anywhere else, but notwithstanding all that, been a marvellous player. Yeah, they do. You're right.
What sort of python were you referring to, Dennis? There's a whole heap of them.
No, don't start again.
He's got a thing about pythons.
For our viewers in Adelaide, Eric Sarich is a nature freak, just back from where? Kenya this time or something. He highlights my lack of knowledge about these reptiles and what have you every Saturday. The ball goes towards the outer side. Up was Anderson. He taps it out of bounds. We'll have a boundary throw-in out there. Anderson claiming he should have got a free kick.
Well, if you're going to air your knowledge, Dennis, I think you've got to have some backup.
A python is a python. We've got a throw-in on the outer side. Waterson opposed to Taylor. Taylor works his way to the front. Taylor, Rowland, and Anderson out there. My brother-in-law's a hairdresser. He'll be at home salivating on that threesome. The ball is inside the 50-metre line. In goes Rogers, knocks it across to Burgess. Burgess drives it back towards centre field. WA have got the numbers. Abernathy's got the desire. Well played, Bruce Abernathy.
That was brilliant. And deservedly got a free kick out of that too. Now, he beat three very, very hesitant West Australian footballers pointless on that occasion.
His form at Adelaide in the last couple of weeks has been outstanding too, Bruce Abernathy. He's a class player. Whoops, so is young Harris. He used the body to get rid of his opponent. He gave it over there to Salisbury, who goes long for South Australia, putting his hand on it down there and kicking it off the ground was Ross Gibbs. He's done it as a full forward for his adopted state, South Australia. He's just booted a goal, and that brings up 3 for Ross Gibbs.
Easy one.
12-14, 4-5. Taken away by Jarman, who's been a star in the centre. He sharked the cock and knock. This is Wake in defence coming away for Western Australia. Runs up through the middle. Sends it out wide. So it's a contest now. Derek Kickett and Burgess. Kickett's in front. Burgess tracking him. Brilliantly played by Kickett. Little chip over the top by Storm. Well, Burgess played it pretty well, but in the end, Derek had too much for Tony. The ball goes down towards full forward. Leading back in the race, Waterson hit the post. Well, that's only justice, I guess. South Australia started this quarter with a rash of posters, and Waterson perhaps should have done better. But on the bounce to the base of the post, 4-6 Western Australia. That is their first score of this term. Whittlesey around the outer side with a long kick towards centre wing. Darren Jarman, bad luck for him. It took a WA bounce. It's taken by Morton. He scrambles a kick forward, and it will be a free kick to Western Australia from where the kick was taken. He was taken high. So Noel Morton, the WA vice-captain, with the ball on the outer side wing.
About 22 minutes into the third quarter, and South Australia has the game well within its keeping. 26 scoring shots to 10 is is an indication of the dominance of the visitors. A punch away there at centre-half forward. Again, Western Australia with the numbers around the ball, but they lack the skill and the desire on occasions to get it out. Peter Carey snared it well then, and we'll see another bounce down from umpire John Hilton.
Looks like Carey might see the quarter through, Peter. He's only got 5 minutes to go, 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think you're right, Eric, and let's face it, he's warm and he's in the game. He's a dominant player at the moment, Peter Carey.
It's one of the pet hates I've got of the interchange system. I do feel that ruckmen in particular seem to be singled out to be interchanged when quite often they're far better off on the ground.
Yeah, and the two ruckmen that Peter Carey, that Graham Corns has got, like being on the ground too, and I think Graham Corns has used them well.
There's another area too, if we want another one. We don't. But the aerial supremacy of South Australia, nearly all the contested high marks have been taken by South Australia, with very, very few exceptions.
Yeah, agreed with that one as well, as Greg Wilkinson tries to break the tackle for Western Australia, and I suppose it's another area, Eric, the tackling.
Oh, that really has impressed me, particularly in this quarter. Quite often the third quarter is looked on as a danger quarter for a side that may be in control. And I think South Australia were well and truly aware that if West Australia had any spirit, any competitive nature to their game, it was going to come out in the third quarter. And I think they met them head on very, very well.
I'm waiting for you two to find the area that WA are in front of.
Well, there is one possibility. I don't know what the lowest score in this state match between these two sides is, but West Australia may be a candidate for that.
We've seen a bit of that lately. Throw in on the outer side. We had the 37-17 to 4-5 a couple of weeks ago over here. West Perth over South Fremantle, Peter.
Well, do you want to give us a suggestion about WA supremacy in any area, Dennis, perhaps?
No, I can't find one either, but I thought you were covering a lot of ground there. I thought you might get to one eventually. Close to the boundary line, McDermott. I'd like his quarter. It's out of bounds and we'll have a throw in. Approaching time on, 23.5 minutes gone. 4-6 to 12-14. 56 points, as you can see. Carey working hard against Waterson. Offhands it comes to Phillips. Driven around the outer side. Good mark is taken by Darren Jarman. He looks a player. Plays on quickly. Goes down towards full forward. Gibbs, an unorthodox way of taking the pace off the ball. It comes back towards half-back. Diving on top of his Thorne. He's claimed by Aish. Free kick to Thorne. Gets the hand pass to Wilkinson. Runs into a dead end. Great tackle, Taylor. Aish comes away. Pulls it back. Brown in the road. Takes the tumbling mark for Western Australia.
Don't be surprised to see a drop kick from Ross Gibbs. It's not beyond him in any competition as Brown tries to run it out for the Westerners and has to hold on to the ball for a long time. Managlio, again, well tackled. They just wouldn't let him go. Abernethy, Whittlesea, Kevin Harris. He didn't know that tackle was there, but Wake's tackle was pedestrian. Harris put it to centre-half forward. Oh, Jarman. Andrew Jarman with sleight of hand gave it to Kevin Harris. Brilliantly set up. Harris tried to get it back to Lamb, but didn't quite make it. In fact, it came off hands and hit the point post. Here's that change. Eric, Carey off. And what a superb quarter of football he's played in this third quarter. He's really dominated.
He sure has.
Taylor.
Well, Parker do all that rap with about 3 minutes to go.
I think he might get the last. There's Ross Gibbs again. He ran out before he kicked that, so that'll have to come back and be thrown in right forward pocket for South Australia.
Well, the crowd, as we said, restless early. They've quietened a lot now, I think. They're just accepting what's happening out there in the middle. They don't have too many options as Watson tries to go through. Claimed is McKenna. And I suppose a lot of people out of this game, Eric Sarich, are going to say these players aren't up to it. I don't think that's quite the case. I think it's more a question of the tempo in club football has fallen away dramatically with the exodus of players, probably about 10 to VFL clubs, and 30 to the Eagles. No Eagles in this side as Gibbs kicks another one out of midair, if you don't mind. That's 4 to Ross Gibbs. So he's got a broad smile on his face. Another goal up, the 13th for South Australia, 13-14 to 4-6. But these players have really had trouble coming to terms with the adjustment of tempo tonight.
Well, that's not surprising, is it? The drop in the level of performance at league level in West Australia obviously has dropped dramatically, but all the more reason why I've always wondered why. I realise that the commitment of West Australian and South Australian players in Victoria, Peter, but wouldn't it be fantastic if the games between these two states could also be played on a state of origin level? I mean, you wouldn't have 10,000 people here. You would have locked the gates long ago.
That would be...
and it's about time it happened, actually.
A game between WA and South Australia at that level would be as good, if not better, as the other two games.
It wouldn't lose at all.
Yeah, we were talking about that today, weren't we, Peter? There's probably a little blandness about the Victorians. It sounds terrible to say that, but probably the most exciting players in the land at the moment are South Australians 1 and West Australians 2.
Agreed, I think.
That's unusual for you.
Eric had to think about that one.
What did you say, Dennis?
I agree.
Simply to keep the
Sydney
balance.
Swan's roots there, you've got to say that.
Oh, there's that man, Guy McKenna again, who started the game so well. Got the kick away, and the siren has gone to end at the third quarter here at the WACA, the WACA ground. South Australia 13-14, Western Australia 4-6, and again, I think that what we witnessed there was a dominant Peter Carey, a dominant Andrew Jarman in the middle. We saw a back pocket player in South Australia, a former Western Australian in Ross Gibbs, replaced Mandamaker at full forward. He's a back pocket player, but he's booted 4 goals, and I suppose that says something.
There's the big fellow Peter Carey, all rugged up, but what a marvellous first and third quarter he had as far as ruck duels go anyway. The one outstanding mark and play on piece of football on the outer wing, Peter gave South Australia a goal. In that quarter, such was South Australia's dominance, as a matter of fact. They had 9 scoring shots and WA had just the 1. In fact, that probably doesn't really tell the whole story. South Australia's 3 goals, I think, are a poor reward for such complete dominance as they had.
So the margin is 62 points at three-quarter time. South Australia lead at 13-14 to 4-6. Graham Corns, a man on his way to an Australian championship. We'll be back with more of the action from the WACA in just a moment. To see if WA can kick a goal. They didn't in that term. It'll be a long time since in an interstate game the side hasn't kicked a goal and a half of football. But some players, as Bruce Abernathy shows, have paid the price here this evening. Three-quarter time, the margin 62 points, 13-14 to 4-6. Let's go down to Ken McCauley.
Well, after listening to Graham Corns, there's no doubt in my mind or anyone's mind at this ground that he and his players are certainly deadly serious about winning the Australian Championship. And when I went to see Toddy, surprisingly enough, was very quiet with his players. He looks to me as if he's the only person in the WA camp that's actually sporting an injury. He's got 2 pulled eye muscles, and these have been brought about by some severe weeping during that second and third quarter. So let's hope that the Western Australian boys pick up some pride and produce a fighting last quarter effort. Back to you.
Noddy Nightingale down there on the boundary. A man who knows everything about injured players, and it seems coaches too. At halftime, the margin was 39 points. At quarter time, it was 30 points, and South Australia have simply stretched it and stretched it. And I think they've stretched his patience as well. A couple of deep breaths. John Todd goes back to his coach's position. Alongside him, Les Mummy, a state selector. It's a long night, John. Umpire John Hilton. All these South Australians are smiling. He's smiling. Peter Marker's smiling. Maxie Parker, isn't he? Wants to get on with the job. The start of the final term then, here at the WACA ground. WA will finish with the assistance of what breeze there is. It's not a strong one. We discussed that early in the game. This is Watson at length. Watson goes out wide. It carries Waterson coming down the ground, storming out is Salisbury. Brilliant stuff. He goes towards the outer side, I think intended for number 23 out there. That's John Painter on the ground, but the ball carried the boundary line on the full. This is Morton sending it back into the forward line then for Western Australia. Whittlesey over the top, knocks it forward. Chance for South Australia. It eluded Parker. It comes to Thorne, wheels onto his left foot, goes out wide looking for Waterson, got his fingertips to it, couldn't hang on, plays on in the front row and will have a boundary throw in.
Yes, it didn't seem to be quite enough endeavour there to get that mark. And again, indirect. Lee was really forced to go out the back door, go back onto that left foot. He just couldn't really come down through centre-half forward. They just haven't been able to do that. Wilkinson got a quick kick over the top. Big leap there by number 10 was Hutton. Couldn't take the mark. South Australia come away. Anderson showing a lot of pace. He's a lot freer tonight than I've seen him in recent weeks. McDermott couldn't half volley it or mark it. Wilkinson to Wake. Wake a long penetrating handball to Rowland. Rowland got around Whittlesey pretty well. Got another handball out. They might run into some trouble as Kickett was caught under the ball. And Andrew Rogers and McKenna go across the line, and Ken McCauley's down there on the boundary line.
Thanks, Peter. Well, Graham Corns spoke to his players in a most enthusiastic manner, and there's no doubt that everybody's deadly serious about winning this Australian Championship. He's not going to be happy unless the Crow Eaters absolutely crush the Sandgrapers, and from John Todd's point of view, well, it's been a very sad night, and he looks as if he's sporting the only injury that anyone from WA's got. He's got two pulled eye muscles brought about by crying with what he's seen tonight.
Brian Peake's taken the mark then, about 30 metres out from goal. In he comes deliberately, and he puts it through. The first goal since half-time for Western Australia. Peake's first.
And very, very gratefully received by the sparse crowd here at the WACA ground. Not a night that Brian Peake will remember as one of his great football matches, but we must never forget that he has really been one of the all-time great West Australian footballers over a long, long time, and some of his greatest performances, in fact, have come in interstate football. Tonight has not been one of those nights, but there's plenty of company out there for him, as there's that sad and sorry, from a WA point of view, of course, Peter Marker, scoreboard, and South Australia right in control.
Yes, they are, Eric, and Shane Cocker is back in ruck now for Western Australia. His immediate opponent will be Max Parker. Oh, Cocker easily. He's done pretty well at the centre bounces, although he hasn't really been able to direct it to anybody. Andrew Jarman is thrown away, and the umpire is holding the ball. Much to Andrew's disgust, is Mark Watson, the little Western Australian rover, puts it up for Peake. And he's run out from full forward and marked another one.
Well, actually, the mind goes back a little bit, Dennis, seeing Peake come out on the lead like that, or an interstate match. Was it last year? Or the
7 goals against Victoria, State of Origin.
Playing it full forward, and I think everybody in the ground was taken by surprise when he lined up there to watch his second shot for the quarter. Not as good as the first, I don't think. And he did play an outstanding game for WA, so Brian Peake is apart from being a great centre-line player, etc., is a very versatile player.
There's Bubner kicking it back in, favouring the outer side. Popping back is Cocker, knocked away out there by South Australia though. Peake swoops on the ball, hand passes it back towards Parker, the man who knocked it out of the congestion. Abernathy goes in, gets the hand pass to Harris, and South Australia work it around the outer side. Comes to Salisbury. Salisbury, a hurried kick down towards half forward. Then goes Painter, paddling it towards the boundary line. Kept it in? No, he didn't. It was just across the boundary line. And we'll have a throw in out there. Home grounds have generally been something of an advantage over the years. Not so tonight. A return to the WACA ground. An unhappy return for Western Australia. This is Wilkinson in defence. Gets it over the top to Morton, who runs up to the defensive 50-metre line. Goes looking for Roland. It wasn't a good kick, but it deflects nicely for Bremen. Bremen goes down towards full forward. Intended for Hutton. Fist in there, and again, this time Bubner wide. Taken by Golding. Well tackled by Whittlesey. And away comes Bubner for South Australia. Runs up towards half-back. Kicks towards centre wing. Roland leads back in the race opposed to Aish. On the overlap is Morton. Better football from Western Australia. But it comes wide to Bremen. And Bremen has the ball about 60 metres out from goal. Puts the ball into the path of Golding coming across the face of the oval. Took a South Australian bounce, and Whittlesey content to run it across the boundary line. And we'll have a throw in. 92 plays 37. It seems just for the moment. Perhaps it's that the South Australians have eased a little, but the West Australians now looking more fluid in their movement. And on that occasion down the grandstand side, it was good football. This is Watson. Scrambled kick to Whittlesey. Lindsay gets it across to Jarman, who's been a star tonight, and Jarman boots it back towards centre field.
He's an outstanding player and one of the contenders for the Simpson medal here tonight. As Painter chips away, but Roland, who took the mark, a free kick against him, which I noticed that Eric Sarich alongside of me agrees with, which would go to Anderson. Anderson's kick forward sees Clinton Brown jump for it, but miss it. It was Taylor to Painter, and Painter from about 50 metres out spears one through. Delightful kick at goal from John Painter. So South Australia advance now 14-14 for Western Australia 5-7.
Well, it was Painter that finally steered it through, but again some delightfully slick work by the big fellow at centre half forward, and Taylor slick little hand pass out after a good walk. A good kick though to finish it off, and a very quick reply from South Australia. Obviously all night have had the answers, as there's their bench. And I'm still waiting to see whether Graham Corns will give us a smile from there, perhaps after the game.
Back to to the centre, and Max Parker put his hand on that one. McDermott played his game in patches tonight, but he has been able to do the hard work. A change of direction there. Sees Parker to Jarman. This is Aish, and Gavin Wake clears for Western Australia. But it's Anderson, who's high in South Australia's best players. He's a lovely kicker of the ball too, as he puts it right up into the square. Surely a free kick for the Western Australian there, and Grant Campbell. He was interfered with.
I've got to get on the tackling again, Peter. Now, the tackling of the South Australians I've talked about, but the West Australians, I saw a South Australian player coming out of the centre. 4 West Australians laid a hand on him, but no one even retarded him. And that's a big difference between the tight and determined tackling of the South Australians.
Certainly is, Eric, and there's Andrew Jarman again having a shot for goal, and he's dragged that one across to get a point. So South Australia just march on. 14-15, Western Australia 5-7.
8 minutes gone, final term. Brown kicks it to himself, runs to the pocket, kicks along the grandstand wing, intended for Golding. Ball falls behind the pack, taken by Anderson, dragged off it. Benaglio gets the cross to Thorne. Thorne runs through the middle, goes out wide looking for Breeman. Breeman was up, couldn't hang on. A chance behind for Bubner, brilliantly played. Away he comes, the short pass is on, and the quick rebound opportunity set up. McDermott gets the hand pass to Salisbury. Salisbury goes out wide, intended for Pater, and Pater takes the mark on the outer side wing. Untidy hand pass, but it bounces obligingly for McDermott. Wrong foot Smorton goes down towards the pocket with a high floating kick. Abernathy almost the one-hander, and Hetherington just paddles it out of bounds. And what's the umpire going to do? He says throw it in. Could have so easily been deliberate that time. Kim Hetherington hasn't had a good night. There's no orphan. Parker and Cocker. Parker first handed the ball. It comes to Watson, to Thorne. Over the top it goes to Menaglio. Menaglio running up towards the middle. Good hand pass. Finds Golding. Bought some space with that handball. Golding goes into the forward line. And Peake couldn't hang on. Valiant attempt to mark. Peake quick thinking on the ground. But he was seen by umpire Ball. He stuck out the foot and thought the man who was marking him, Burgess, who was after the ball, that Peake himself had spilt. Burgess, grandstand side with a high kick. Coming across is Taylor. He'll knock on, but it's knocked away from him by Rowland. Freeman gets it to Wilkinson. Wilkinson down towards the pocket. Coming up to meet the ball is Salisbury. Well played. He got to the half volley. Kept it in front of him. Dragged off the kick, but gets it his way. And the mark is taken by Rogers.
Played very well against Victoria too, Salisbury. He's one of the toughest players I've seen for a long time. Rogers. Aish. He stopped on the run in, and Managlia read it better than anybody. Cocker, centre half back. Showed a little bit more fluency then as he moved away. The kick not the best. Thorne. And his kick is cut off well by Bruce Abernathy. South Australia's disposal tonight has been very good. Buick. It's not Buick. McKenna opened very well.
He disappeared off the scene, didn't he, after a fantastic first quarter?
That kick, again, not a good one. Doesn't give his forwards a chance at all. Here's a go. Free kick, the whistle's gone as Golding had the ball. It's going to go back to Bruce Lindsay. Or will it be Whittlesea for interference?
That's twice tonight Hetherington's done that off the ball.
That's one of his specialties, actually. Absolutely unnecessary. West Australia in possession with a run. No threat from the South Australian player, and a totally unnecessary free kick.
Certainly hurt them. Oh, Abernathy nowhere to go as Cocker came in. Now Max Parker. Andrew Jarman. Whoop. The handball not well placed. It went behind him. Golding now for Western Australia. Here they go again. Peake's in front. Can't mark it. Plenty of opposition. Kick it. Couldn't quite get his hand on it. Peake appears to have got one right in the back of the head. Now Anderson. South Australia go in again. Ross Gibbs comes out. Oh, big leap over the top. Brown. Staying down was Gavin Wake. He's going to change direction and find Menaglio at centre half back.
Menaglio from half back, driving it towards centre field. Waterson's up in front, almost the mark behind there to Rogers. Crashing through is Breeman. Gets it across to Rowland, to Thorne. Now he can draw a man. He runs at the defence. Will kick from 50 metres out. That's a good-looking kick from Peter Thorne. It's through for a goal. That's his first of the night. And Western Australia bring up their sixth.
the centre as we're at about 12.5 minutes now in this last quarter. South Australia not far away from an Australian Championship win as it goes through centre half forward for Western Australia. Well tapped on by Waterson. That's Colin Waterson. Kickett, who's been out of the game for too long. Couldn't put his hands on it. It comes back to him now. Hot pursuit there, though. The South Australians just won't let him get clear. They simply won't let him get out at all, and was well fought by the South Australian defenders at left half forward. We'll see a bounce down in that area, about 30 metres from the Western Australian goal. Parker over the top. And it's pushed out of bounds, as I said, about 30 metres around from the Western Australian goal.
Boundary throw in then. Parker and Waterson over the top. Phillips back towards the boundary, and once more it'll be thrown in. So South Australia led by 30 points at quarter time, 39 points at half time, and 62 at three-quarter time. And that's the margin now. Parker interfered with Waterson, and Waterson claiming front position, and in turn a free kick. So he'll take this kick about 50 metres out from goal. 14-15 to 6-7. WA adding just the 1 point in the third term. It was a dismal display. Here's Waterson, who can kick it a long way. In other words, full forward, 2-on-1 situation, off hands, despite the efforts of Kickett, who crashes into the goal umpire. Forced behind then. 6-8 to 14-15. Peter Bubner will bring it back to South Australia. Little chip pass into the path of Phillips. Phillips runs it out to the 50-metre defensive line, steadies, goes for a long kick towards centre wing. Vandermaker's in front, fisted away by Wilkinson. Roving the pack is Bremen for Western Australia. Looking for Thorne, confronted by Harris, and Harris rather crudely put Thorne down. Away comes Watson. Watson wheels onto the right foot, goes down towards the pocket, peeks in front down there, getting his fingertips to the ball and knocking it away was Burgess. Hutton's got it, intelligent hand pass back infield. Coming through though is Whittlesey. And he's a specialist at that, just gathering the ball and trotting over the boundary line. Now he's being penalised.
But it's pretty harsh, though, isn't it? I mean,
Well, he's running in that direction. How can you penalise that after Hetherington's about 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, I suppose it would have been far more meaningful if the scores were level. Oh, the kick was a good one. It was a check side, but it hit the post. And Western Australia now, well, they haven't done much right all night, so they've just hit the post again. 6-9 to South Australia, 14-15. And we'll see the kick in from Bubner. Been a tidy player, and that's a delightful kick. Bremen is behind. He goes for the punch against Rogers. Taps the ball in front of him. Rogers was right on him, and he's given away a free kick to Bremen. The man who's got to meet the tribunal tomorrow night. Fawn couldn't take the mark, and off goes Anderson for South Australia. A quick penetrating kick. Clayton Lamb there couldn't mark the ball. Off hands of Guy McKenna. The chip away is going to go straight to Anderson, who's going to play it on now. Michael Aish, short, take your pick. His pick on that occasion was Clayton Lamb.
imagine poor old Bremen a night like tonight and top a couple of weeks tomorrow night. Good week.
He would have been glad of them this afternoon, I think.
Bruce Lindsay, South Australian captain, deep in the left forward pocket with a chance to kick a goal, and he'd no doubt like one. Oh, he's got it. It looked like it was going to miss, but it came back. He knew what the breeze was doing. His first goal, South Australia 15-15, Western Australia 6-9.
Yes, he used the breeze rather well on that occasion, aimed the ball pretty well at the left toward the near goal post, and what breeze there is, and we've debated that all night, is coming from the left, so it was eased across the face a little bit and through the big opening in South Australia, a little further away. And I think it's still fair to say that even though West Australia has played more spirited football in the last quarter, most of the good stuff is coming from South Australia.
Just over 16 minutes gone. There's the bounce. Cocker wins it down. Abernathy goes in. Socket off the ground by Hetherington towards half forward. The mark is taken by Rogers of South Australia. So South Australia is set for the Australian Championship. A great victory over Victoria at Football Park. And they've certainly earned this championship. Perhaps in the eyes of some, a hollow victory tonight, but They got the big accolade, I guess, because of their performance in that State of Origin game, and WA's inability to offer a contest tonight is not the South Australians' fault. Down goes Hart. Battling through there is Cocker. Parker, all the dexterity of a small man, gives it across to Painter. Painter hooks it down towards the 25-metre line, drifting across McKenna. That was a good mark. Only 17 years of age, Guy McKenna. Sloppy kick, but it bounces obligingly for Golding, who lays it off to Brown. Brown runs up towards the 50-metre defensive line and puts the ball into the path of Benaglio. He's been a fine player since he came onto the ground, Benaglio. On the outer side has the ball. Wrong foots an opponent. Tries to centre it. Good kick, too. He uses the ball so well, and he finds Waterson. Cruising past his kick it. Waterson ignores that. Now he thinks about it. No confident then. He drives for distance down towards half forward. Peake does well to spoil Burgess. Coming through is Hutton. Well tackled by Burgess. No. Yes. He's been penalised for a throw there. The West Australian player. I thought for a moment the tackle may have slipped a little high, but Burgess played that one well. Came back quickly after the spoil to apply the tackle. Drives to the outer side. Cocker gets a fist in there. Driving the pack, Waterson. Into Benaglio. Let's see what he does with the ball this time. Benaglio hooks it around the corner and again disposes of it well and finds Hutton.
Brent Hutton, left half forward flank. Booted 2 goals in the second quarter, Hutton, and he kicked very well. He's about 55 metres out. Oh, that's a boomer of a kick. He's going to lob it right in the square. Kick it from behind. Can't take the mark. Off hands, and Salisbury clears for South Australia. Breeman hooks back, but straight to a South Australian player. Off hands, Andrew Jarman. Whittlesea. Anderson. It goes through several players there at half forward. Chancing his arm was Noel Morton. Gavin Waite takes it off hands and puts it up beyond centre wing to Peter Thorne. Thorne centres the ball. Oh, good mark. The ball went a little bit too far. I thought it was going to go over the Western Australian player there, but he stood up tall and took a good mark.
Yes, he's very, very good on the one grab situation, Peter, is Brett Hutton. And 2 goals so far. Big chance to make it 3 and just, again, enhance Western Australia's last quarter, if nothing else.
He certainly kicked the distance. He's a magnificent kick, isn't he?
There it is.
Umpire Hilton. 15-15 to 7-9. There's the bounce. Parker opposed to Cocker. They fight a draw. Picked up by Thorne over the top. Kicker tries to knock it on. Jarman, who's been a star, does things at his own pace. Goes out wide looking for Painter. Painter battling with Morton. Bit of balance shown by the South Australian. Painter has the ball at half forward. Then goes with his wrong foot down towards the pocket. WA have got the numbers down there. Lamb was up. Driving the pack is McKenna. And McKenna content to paddle it out of bounds. And we'll have a boundary throw in. So the clock now past 20 minutes. There have been some great finishes in matches between these two sides. And of course, that's been the hallmark of State of Origin football in the last decade. A number of tight games we've seen, some outstanding games in South Australia and Western Australia. The Victorians have been the losers there in terms of those spectacles, and Lamb comes over the top and takes a very strong mark. So Lamb only 25 metres out. Has a chance to kick another goal. It will be his 3rd and the 16th for South Australia. So I guess they've got the champagne down in the rooms now. The Australian Championships is just having the finishing touches put to it. Lamb kicks his 3rd goal.
Yes, I can easily believe you, Peter Marker, when you say that this player can kick a ball a long way. He just sort of jerked at that ball, really. He still would have travelled 40 or 50 metres. Very comfortable kicking distance for a player of his calibre. And down he goes, but he'll be pretty happy. There it is. Just almost a short pass type kick, but that went a fairly long way, didn't it? And straight.
Strong player, Clayton Lamb, and pretty useful to be able to put him in a forward pocket too, because he's deceptive. He probably wouldn't be 6 feet tall or a shade under, but he's got very long arms. It almost makes him a 6'2", 6'3" type of player up there. Max Parker in the centre, and indecisive there against Cocker. Form shoots a penetrating handball, which was brilliantly done to Cocker. Managlia off again, and Peake couldn't mark the ball. Bit of byplay there with Burgess, and kicking it out on the full. Under pressure was Brent Hutton.
That was very decisive. Would have gone back about 30 rows out of play. Not a lot of doubt about that one.
It's probably therapeutic.
And just as well there was somebody in that section of the crowd to throw it back too. Have a look at that. Well, cleared all of them.
That's not a bad camera shot, is it?
Yeah.
Expecting the unexpected.
Freeman runs through half forward. Here's another chance as he gets it off to Waterson. His kick's under pressure, but he managed to pop it through Colin Waterson. So another belated goal to Western Australia. Waterson's second. And it's good to see them fighting to the finish, Eric.
Yes, it is. I suppose from a WA point of view, Peter, it's you tend to think they've fought back. Whether South Australia's taken the brakes off a little bit, I don't know. We heard Ken McCauley suggest that Graham Corns was appealing for the biggest possible win, and that hasn't, well, they haven't gone on with that, let's put it that way, and so West Australia fought back quite well, I suppose.
Just a tick over 23 minutes gone. 16-15 to 8-9. Back in the middle. Up goes Parker with Cocker. Neither of them touch the ball. Parker's looking for it. Buick knocks it on. It's thumped back into the congestion. Thorne is there for Western Australia. Claimed by Pater. Dragged out of it by Pater. And the umpire Ball decides he'll move in and bounce it down. Very quiet crowd here at the WACA ground. Certainly not a watershed night for WA football, this one. As Thorne comes away and boots towards half forward, and Salisbury takes the mark. He's done pretty well on kick it when the ball's been in their vicinity. Salisbury goes out wide. The leaper out there was Turley. Behind it's Abernathy breaking away for South Australia around the outer side. Abernathy bloodied, wakes towards centre wing, crosses that, goes down towards half forward. The long kick into the forward line, knocked away by Campbell. Mandamaker's got it, gets the hand pass to Harris. 25 metres out, Harris. That's a fine snapshot from there. Fine football by South Australia. Harris gets his first.
And again, you sort of look at that passage of football by South Australia, and you really have to be honest with yourself and suggest that perhaps whenever they feel like kicking a goal, Peter, I think they're quite capable of doing just that. And there was a good passage of football and a clever little snapshot. Didn't have a lot of time to deliberate on that one. And in fact, he knew he'd kicked it long before the umpire had signalled. So a good goal to South Australia, I suppose. They've shared the goals, I suppose, in the last quarter, and still not a lot of joy in the South Australian camp. Are you all pessimists over that side of Nullarbor or something, Peter?
Oh, there's a couple of smiles there. Graham Corns. Well, Peter Carey, I saw one there.
I know you are, but we can't see you on TV.
I think they probably realised that they've won it, obviously, and nevertheless, the game goes on. The hard kick goes to Ross Gibbs, who cleverly evades the tackle. A neat little chip with the left boot. Clayton Lamb behind. We get a long way off the ground. Now McDermott back to Gibbs. Gibbs with a quick kick away. It was smothered. It's gone way over to the right forward pocket for South Australia. As we just approach time on now, we may in fact be in it.
And the boundary umpire has got to hop the fence to pull that one back. That's a sad sight, isn't it?
No need to draw attention to it.
And Gibbs was not going to give that ball away no matter what. He probably never kicked 5 goals in a football match in his life. To do so in an interstate clash against his old side, or old state anyway, would have been extra icing on the cake, but he couldn't quite pull it off.
Maglio brilliantly picked up on the half volley to Roland. Roland on centre wing. He's got better as the game's worn on. And Burgess has made it very hard for Pete. Pete's got a word to say to Burgess. More than one. Although one was there quite frequently. This is Roland. He pulls it back. Intelligent kick, and the mark is taken by Golding.
Pete feels that there's been a little bit of interference from behind when he's had front position in this last quarter playing from full forward. And the umpires haven't agreed with him, and that time he took it out on the opponent, really.
Yeah, I think that Burgess has just been very competitive, Eric.
I agree with that. No doubt about that at all.
It's a good kick, though, from Steve Golding as he gets his first goal. That's another one, and that's 5 goals to Western Australia in the last quarter, and compared to 4 in the first 3 quarters, so it's a great finish. Back to the centre now, and you can see the scoreline. South Australia well on top. They have been right from the word go. Cocker gets his hand on it again. Quick kick away there from Fawn, who's done pretty well in the middle. Andrew Jarman really has controlled that position, but Fawn has done much better than Peake. It's at right half forward flank now. Painter was being held there, or was he holding his opponent?
Yeah, a bit of both probably, and I thought the umpire judged it fairly much that way and decided you're all in that one, or you both are in that one.
It's been a pretty easy game, I guess, to umpire for umpires Hilton and Ball. Nothing controversial. Hart has the bear hug applied by two players, so we'll see a bounce down in the right wing half-forward area there for South Australia.
So South Australia, the Australian champions, congratulations to them. I suppose they'd be smiling broadly in Adelaide tonight, not in the expanded VFL competition, but they are the Australian champions. Sounds a contradiction, but they'd be delighted with this. Full credit to them. This is Mandamaker. Having more salt into the wound, goes goalward and steers approved for another one. 18-15 to 9-9, the second goal to Rudy Mandamaker.
Yeah, that was all too easy, wasn't it? Hasn't been on the ground. I'm making 3 actually. Who would agree with that?
I'm making 2, but
okay, well, 2 against 1. I'm out of that. There he is, streaking in towards goals as fast as he can streak anyway. He didn't have much opposition, so he steered it through from a comfortable distance. But whether it be second or third, I'm not too sure. What do we make it?
Weight of numbers says 2.
Okay.
back to the centre again. Must be very close to the end of the game, although South Australia has booted 5 this quarter, Western Australia 5, so there might be another minute as Cocker is still showing a lot of finesse there in the middle. Parker, Harris, a change of direction to Hart. Hart streams through half forward, or he's gone for distance right into the goal square, and
just long enough to pay a mark to Campbell, I think, there, Peter.
Yeah, just long enough. I was looking for the free kick there and thinking that he hadn't held it long enough, but it was paid. McKenna. Back to Campbell, and Campbell's gone for a space. And in comes Phillips, though. He's been like the Rock of Gibraltar back there. And a good attempt there by McDermott. I think he did mark it before it went out. So McDermott, who has been useful, South Australia's vice-captain, centres that ball, looking for Rudy Mandamaker. No opposition there, but an illegal shepherd against Greg Phillips. I think it may have been Painter. Sees Western Australia take the relieving free kick. It's gone to Thorne. Thorne will play it on now and goes over the top of Freeman. Oh, good cut-off there by Andrew Jarman, which foiled the attempt of Kickett to come in and mark the ball. A neat pass off to Greg Phillips, who in turn finds Scott Salisbury on centre wing.
He's been a bad player either, hasn't he?
No, good player. He's the sort of player you wouldn't want to stand if you were still playing footy, I think, Eric. He makes you fight for every kick.
I found that a problem most players, actually.
Rudy Mandamaker may have hurt himself there. No, he's getting up now, so he's gone out of bounds again. Left half forward flank for South Australia.
Throw-in coming up then, 16-15 to 8-9, almost double the West Australian score. South Australia's coming through is Wilkinson. Diving on the ball is Jarman. Well played, Jarman. That's symptomatic of the night, really. Gets up and puts the finishing touches to his effort. Just off hands and through for a minor score. There's the siren, mercifully for Western Australia. It's been a disappointing night tonight. Western Australia going under. That's the West Australian fans, of course. 9-9 to 18-16. And South Australia, well, as we said in the run home, the Australian champions. And there's the coach of that team, Graham Corns. The victory over Victoria in the State of Origin clash at Football Park a few weeks back. They won that in a cliffhanger by 4 points. But tonight, no such drama. They put their stamp on this game early, and they embossed it as the game went on. Graham Corns happy to shake hands with his skipper, Bruce Lindsay. And let's get some words from Peter Marker about this South Australian side and what they've achieved.
Well, they had a mission this year in the State of Origin, under the State of Origin concept. We all realise that in the match South Australia and Western Australia, the Victorian players aren't there. There's a few unknowns in these games. And this is the first time that we've had to play the game on the WACA ground, but the South Australian side came across the Nullarbor to win the game. They did just that. You can't do any more than what they did. They led from start to finish. 18-16 to 9-9. They didn't have one passenger. They may have been surprised by the lack of aggression applied by the Western Australians right throughout the game. But they were superbly led and rucked by Peter Carey. I thought their centre player and Andrew Jarman was magnificent. That set it up for their forward players, and it turned out to be a reasonably comfortable victory.
Well, the state without representation in the VFL has won it tonight, and the West Australians can only look on pensively. All honours to South Australia. They're the Australian champions for 1987. On behalf of Peter Marker and Eric Sarich, Tennis Committee at the WACA ground in Perth.
Like it hot. Some feel the heat. Some like it hot, but you can't tell how hot till you try. Some like it hot, so let's turn up the heat till we fry.
Well, certainly a great effort there by South Australia, a 61-point victory over Western Australia to become the legitimate champions of Australia the first time since 1911. So congratulations to our team over there in Perth. And of course the Simpson medal was the medal awarded for the best player of the night, and that went to Glenelg's Chris McDermott. A unique double for him because he also won the Foss Williams medal here in the game against Victoria. So repeating those scores, 18 goals, 16, 124, South Australia defeating Western Australia, 9 goals, 9, 63. We certainly hope you've enjoyed our special edition of Seven's Big League tonight. And coming up very shortly is a delayed telecast of the NBC Today show. I'm Craig McGann. Good night.